Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be. For all of you listening out there across the crazy planet Earth, welcome to Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Bryan Willett, coming to you live from the deep woods of western Georgia on this November 7th, 2023. Okay, so tonight is Open Lines, Open Topics, and Father Chris is in Australia, as you all know, and they are having some kind of complete internet telephone wipeout for the entire country, I believe. So he's going to try to come in if he can get reconnected. But if not, we're going to depend on you guys to have a whole bunch of questions for us because, you know, he can talk even more than I can. But I can't do the whole show myself. So get your questions ready now. The show is yours. Whatever you want to discuss, we'll talk about it. Don't go away. Everybody, you know, it's kind of interesting because I think a large number of our live audience comes out of Australia, and I'm seeing it reflected in the numbers tonight. It's about half of the volume we usually have. So I think, you know, definitely it's being affected. So hopefully Father Chris can join us if he can find a workaround or if they're able to resolve the outage. And he can join us maybe for later on in the show. Kind of sucks, really, honestly, because Open Lines, Open Topics is one of the you know, best shows for the whole panel to kind of get together and talk about what's on their mind. So, but rest assured, Jamie and I and Brandon we can manage, and just going to need a lot of questions and topics from you to be able to get through the next 3 hours of Open Lines, Open Topics. Okay, so Jamie, what do you have for us tonight for our liturgical libations?
We've got the Macallan 12-year single malt Scotch whiskey finished in sherry casks.
Okay.
Now,
Macallan is considered to be the Rolls Royce of single malt.
Let's see what we have here. The aroma, complex with hints of vanilla, dried fruits, and ginger. The palate, smooth, medium balanced with fruit, oak, and spice. The finish, long with sweet dried fruits, oak, and spice.
Well, that sounds right up my alley.
And, you know, y'all know I don't usually do scotches, but it had me at sherry cask.
Sherry, Oloroso sherry just puts that wonderful sweetness and...
Real nice dark amber color.
That's probably from the sherry. I mean, sometimes Scotch, but I don't think Macallan does it, but sometimes Scotch can add caramel color. That's perfect.
Oh, Jamie, pour.
I don't think Macallan colors their way. Okay, they could add coloring. I don't
think they do. I think this is natural.
It's allowed. It's not allowed in bourbon, but it's allowed in Scotch. Ironically, they do it to try to keep consistency with color, and because people think brown liquor looks better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can taste that sherry.
That's a winner. That's a winner.
It's like candy, isn't it?
Yeah, so I may have to go pick up one of these. Macallan, you do it again.
I've never had a Macallan I don't like. You know, I've got quite a few up there.
You do.
I got some of the rare ones.
Yeah. Out of all the scotches, you know, I like my Dalmore, anything Dalmore, but Macallan, it's got some pretty good scotches that I actually enjoy.
It's fresh.
Yeah.
Macallan has a nice, fresh, clean taste.
Maybe that's what it is.
And I think you like that.
Yeah, I don't like peat and I don't like a lot of smoke.
Yeah,
But,
and McKellen's not smoky. It used to. There was a few years where they were smoky, where coal came in short supply, and they had to resort to peat to malt the barley. So that might have been those iterations of McKellen were smoky, but typically it's not smoky. So very good.
Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that one once again. Yeah. All right, and from Tennessee we have Brandon Milan with us tonight. How you doing, Brandon?
Brandon.
I am doing pretty good.
Okay.
My libations for tonight is some lovely peach tea.
Not some good old Lipton tea now.
Heck, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. Some of you people in Georgia might not be the most sane sounding religiously, but y'all know how to make some peach tea. Let me tell you that.
Oh no, you need to go to Mrs. Winter's chicken place and get you some of their sweet tea.
See, we used to have one in Cookeville years ago, but now it's some hibachi place.
Well, I'll tell you, there was a time years and years and years ago in the early days of this church where we were looking under the original benefactors and the original founders, when the original founders were still actively involved in the ministry. We were looking at setting up a monastery, because the Holy Nicolaitan Catholic Church was always set up to be a semi-monastic community. It was never intended to be a diocesan outreach, a worldly parish in the city. That was never its intention. As an esoteric Catholic establishment in the independent sacramental movement, monasticism was far more suited to its particular focus, which was on teaching and prayer. Essentially, that was its two primary outreaches. This is long before we ever thought we'd end up doing, like, traveling around doing exorcisms. That was never the focus. And so when it came to our vision for going forward and what we wanted to do with the ministry, what we decided was, let's find land and establish the monastery. And so at the time we were looking at Western in Tennessee, out in sort of the Mennonite part of Tennessee. Beautiful country, really out there. It's just all farmland. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, I've been out that way.
Yeah, it's really nice. The western part of the state's beautiful, right west of Nashville by about maybe an hour and a half. And so we were looking. I forget what town it was, but we were looking up in that area, and there was a house up there, on 50 acres, I think it was. Very nice, perfect. Had a duck pond and everything, and it was in the middle of nowhere. It was beautiful. And when we went to when we went to with the realtor to tour the house, they were selling it by owner, so we just went in. There was no realtor. We just went in, and he took us around, and his wife served us a sweet tea, a sun brewed sweet tea.
Oh yeah, my parents used to make sun tea.
Oh my God! Now, if you were talking about sweet tea, like the best I've ever had, that was it. And so I couldn't tell. I mean, my wife will remember where it was, but I couldn't tell you. But Brandon, that's where you go to get the good sweet tea. Is that this woman was the one that made it? And it's not too far from you.
If my arteries don't clog after each sip, it's not sweet enough.
It's not your arteries you need to worry about. It's your pancreas that you need to worry about.
That sugar.
Yeah, but this was very sweet. I mean, it was like, it was almost like a Thai lemon. Have you ever had Thai lemonade?
Yes.
Thai lemonade is like almost like cavity. You can feel the cavities forming in your teeth. It almost hurts.
Almost unbearable.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Now, a friend of mine makes some pretty good sweet tea, and for every gallon, he puts in 4 cups of sugar.
Oh my God. Is he trying to ferment it out there?
I mean, he's a country boy from Brunswick, Georgia. So yeah, it's his mom or dad's recipe. And yeah, we went over there one time for a cookout, and I watched him make it. And I'm like, Kevin, what are you doing?
That's too much.
4 cups for every batch. I'm like, Jesus, no wonder we feel like crap the next day.
I'm telling you, I'm not much of a sweet tooth person. I do every now and then I get a hankering for chocolate, so chocolate's kind of one of the sweets that I will definitely indulge in sometimes, but only at like occasional times. But I'm not like a cake person. I do like lemon meringue pie. I like French silk pie. But almost nobody ever buys that for me. So it's like I don't go to the store and buy my own pies. I don't
Sweet
do that.
potato pie is my Achilles heel.
Really?
And then my mother's homemade cherry pie, which I'll be having in a few weeks, and I will make a glutton of myself. I'm just gonna go ahead and.
So yeah, I don't do too much sweets. I do like chocolate mousse though. So French chocolate mousse and stuff like that.
That baked Alaska you make's pretty damn good.
I do make a good baked
Alaska.
Oh,
y'all, you don't know?
And that isn't too sweet. I mean, other than the sweetness in the ice cream, but meringue's not terribly sweet. But I do make it. Let's do that this year. I found
Twist my arm.
I'm going to. We'll do our little St. Nicholas feast or something. We'll figure it out.
Yum yum.
All right. So, like I said, Brandon, Father Chris is not with us, as you've probably figured out and heard. And there's a big countrywide blackout of both internet and telephone. So there's no way for him to reach us today unless he can get it resolved before the end of the show, which he will try to do. I wouldn't count on it though. So burden is going to be on you and on our audience to make sure we have enough content for tonight, because I don't prepare for open lines, open talk. I don't even prepare for the shows I should prepare for. I just like to wing it. I like to just.
You wing the homilies too. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I don't write those down.
Yeah.
I don't. I've never written down a homily. Not a day in my life.
No, I know. So he has a tell, y'all. So when we're doing the readings, he'll sit there, watch next mass, and y'all gonna giggle. He'll sit there and he bows his head and he starts to play with his thumbs.
Do I? I've never even realized
you
that.
can tell he's kind of in a meditative state as we're doing the readings. And then when we stop, we sit down, he kind of hesitates for a minute. And when his hands separate, he's ready to go.
I've never even
I'm
realized
a trained
that.
observer. I was a cop for 26
awesome.
years, so I watch people. Y'all watch next mass. Y'all going to giggle over
I'm
it.
going to go back and watch next one. I'm going to watch last one.
No, you don't need to watch it because you don't need to know you're doing it. But it is your tell.
Now that you brought it up,
that's how I look over. Like, it's going to be a good one tonight, y'all. Strap
You
in.
just got called out right there.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
It's a good call out, though.
No, it is good. No, I've never written one down. And occasionally when you have me do, and when the audience wants me to do and talk on a topic, I will sometimes prepare an outline so that I don't go off on my own tangents, which I'm very well known to do. And you've seen them. Everyone that's been a long-term listener of this show knows that I tend to do that from time to time. So I will put an outline sometimes in front of me just so that I can keep myself on track. But I never really write down like speeches or lessons, even for my students when we do the Forbidden Truth webinar every Saturday afternoon. There's an outline that I put up in PowerPoint for them to kind of follow along so that they have slides to help reinforce the knowledge. But I don't teach that from a lesson plan or anything. I just throw it together in my head. And I do use a bibliography. I do use sources to kind of come up with the formula of what we're going to talk about. But, as far as like the lecture part of it, I just kind of go with it, So that's how we're going to do tonight. Okay. So I don't have any content or material for you other than what you posed to me, but we always start out every show, even open lines, open topics, with questions from the ether. So let's go ahead and get started with those, Brandon. We'll see where it takes us.
So just to know, we got you covered for tonight.
Okay, good.
Oh, you got plenty, huh?
That's good.
We got enough.
All right.
So this first question comes from April on the network. She asks, if ghosts don't have consciousness and are thus unable to respond, when we do get responses such as EVPs or hearing knocking sounds, who is responding?
Okay, April, this is good because we had a little conversation today on the network, and she had listened to the psychic seduction series that we did early in this season, parts 1 and 2. And she was a little unclear on some things about that. So this question, we can kind of maybe clear that up too for April. So not just answer this question, but it kind of is related and we can lead into it. So we got to talk a little bit about what we mean when we say ghosts don't have consciousness, okay? Consciousness and awareness is different, just as spirit and soul are different. We use them interchangeably because when you're talking in a colloquial way, or if you're just using, common speech, it's easy to just sort of talk with the language of, the people. So you will not necessarily always use correct semantics when you're needing to discuss things at a more technical or higher academic level. And so when we're talking about high level metaphysics or high level philosophy, like we deal with on this show, it's not sufficient to just simply interchangeably use words like spirit and soul, or any other kind of parallel. There's differences between them, and we'll talk about that. Consciousness and awareness, there's differences between them. So at the higher technical level, when we talk about consciousness, we're talking about cognitive processes, which we know scientifically is a brain function. Okay, it's an aspect of brain activity. We can measure this electrically, and there's different waves of frequency that happens as the brain processes information. And each one of those has a different vibration that can be measured, resonance, yes, that can be measured with the right equipment. So we know that when the mind is awake and it's having its cognitive processes in a conscious way, we know that looks like something. We know that electrical activity looks like something. But one of the things that is measured when a person dies, is one of the things that determines whether a person's dead is not just the heart not beating anymore, but no more brain activity, no more brain function. So if there's no brain activity, no brain function, no cognitive function, then there's no consciousness either, okay? Because consciousness is an aspect of that. So when the brain's dead, consciousness ceases to exist. But there is still awareness. And that's where there's a difference between the two, because awareness, you could say, is the actual true condition. It's not polluted by cognitive processes, which of course include all of your own concepts and identities, biases and paradigms, and all these little things of the ego that get imprinted into your awareness and becomes the construct of your cognitive processes. So your brain starts to think like you want it to think, or like it thinks it should think. So, if you've got prejudices, it comes out of your conscious choices. Your cognitive processes produces those prejudices, okay? And everybody's got them, okay? Even if you try hard not to have them, I guarantee you are prejudicial against something. It might not be race, it might not be gender, but it's probably political. I guarantee you, if you're conservative, you probably have some prejudices against liberals, and if you're liberal, you probably have some prejudices against conservatives, and that comes from your cognitive processes. It does not come from awareness.
And if you're libertarian, you have prejudice against both of them,
and rightfully so. It's just like, because the libertarian's like, you know what? I'll leave you alone if you leave me alone. That's our position. But anyway, this gets you to now, what is awareness and where does that come from? Well, metaphysically speaking, now science isn't ready to take this leap yet, but metaphysically speaking, okay, at the philosophical level, it is absolutely understood irrefutably within philosophical circles that deal with metaphysics, okay, that the reason we have consciousness at all is because awareness has to have, or has to be, a property of the cosmos itself. Because the cosmos can't create something that isn't already of itself. Every atom in your body comes from something that exists cosmically. I mean, we're stardust, literally. All of this, when the solar system was forming around what became the gaseous elements that produced the star that we orbit around, that's where all of the elements that make up every atom in your body came from.
Remember, you are dust.
Yeah, literally dust, but not like shitty dust. Like, we're talking like good dust, like cosmic dust. Yeah. So that the position in metaphysics is that awareness is natural to the cosmos itself. It is part of creation itself. Therefore, it can produce it because it's already there. Consciousness is just an accident of that process. So as you start to localize awareness into what seems to be a separate system, And a human being is a separate system because all of the cells in your body are not connected to any cells outside your body. It's a closed system. It creates the accident of individuality. It creates the accident of ego. It creates the accident of separateness. Okay, which is the root of really all our problems, honestly. But this is because we don't see it correctly. And that's because we see it through the lens of our existence, which is a closed system. We don't see ourselves as part of the larger open system because we're individually disconnected from it. But awareness is all around us. And everything fundamentally has the properties of awareness. It's just you need a really sophisticated system like a human being to be able to experience it. And that's where consciousness comes in. So when a person dies, okay, those cognitive processes cease with the rest of the body's ceased functions. But the awareness that was that originated through that closed system now rejoins with the open system of the larger cosmos. And it's the same awareness that is everywhere else, that is in everything else. And that is ultimately what or where we are to find eventually when we're ready to make those leaps scientifically. That's where we will find afterlife. It's going to be in that. It's not going to be in the individuality of the closed system that's dead. It's going to be when the awareness that animated that closed system rejoins the larger system, or more accurately, remembers that it was always part of the larger system, that it never really was part of the closed system in the first place. Okay. That's the challenge. Now, there's a separation between that. Don't think that just because you're dead, you automatically go from the understanding of the closed system of consciousness to the open system of awareness. You don't. There's a transition in that. And that's what Buddhism refers to as the bardo. This is the separation between, or the moments between life and death. The moments between consciousness and awareness. Okay, the moments between the closed system and the open system. And so when a person dies, okay, and that closed system consciousness is just fading away with the rest of that life that once was and is no longer, the awareness part of it is awakening back up. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily happen instantaneously. And it will retain for a time those biases that it had because it doesn't immediately recognize what it is still. It had been living for 60, 70, 80 years in the closed system. And reconnecting itself to the truth of its of awareness isn't something that just sort of like happens organically. There has to be a process to realization to come back to it. Otherwise, it stays trapped in that closed system forever. And that's what Buddhism refers to as samsara. Now, in Christian terms, they kind of bypass all of the metaphysics of death because they just focus on the two end results of anything that can happen. Where Buddhism focuses on the in-between, Christianity focuses on just the end results. And there's two end results that will happen. If that pocket of awareness realizes itself, it wakes up into the eternity of eternal life. If it doesn't, it dissipates and completely is annihilated. If it wakes up to eternal life, we call that heaven. If it gets annihilated, we call that hell. And the place in between, instead of the bardo, kind of referred to it as like the purgatory or limbo in Christian theology. Okay, it's kind of like an aspect of each in there. Buddhism doesn't really focus on the end result. It calls it parinirvana, but it doesn't really focus on it as an eternal life thing. In fact, it says it would be beyond life. It's beyond form. It's beyond any kind of manifestation. In fact, it's so far beyond manifestation that manifestation is no longer necessary. And that's beyond our comprehension. Okay, so Buddhism doesn't really focus on that. They figures you've got eons and eons to figure that out once that happens. You don't need to be focused on that. What you need to focus on is how do you end up in parinirvana? How do you achieve to this state and not end up on the wheel of samsara, which is being forever locked into the closed system? Okay. Ghosts are part of the closed system, just as we living here on this planet right now in our bodies with our egos are part of the closed system. There is no difference between the human and the ghost, with the exception that the ghost doesn't have the faculties of cognition, which gives him a logical rationality to understand what it's doing. So it becomes literally the instinct of whatever it was in life. So whatever that driving instinct was, if you were ever forever driven by curiosity or love, then that's what you die and become. If you were forever driven by animosity, hatred, anger, fear, then that's what you become. And your last thoughts are pivotal to determining how that plays out in the bardo. So dying in its traumatic state is going to lend itself to fear and anger, right? I mean, you're murdered. You don't want to be murdered, right? You're going to be angry about that. And then you take that with you, and that's what you become. So you become a closed awareness system of just anger. And that's it. No thought behind it, just anger. And this becomes the wrathful spirits that we sometimes see in this work. So this is what ghosts are. Now, I have an analogy to try to understand this, because this is different than a soul. Okay, because again, in religion, even the Bible will kind of talk about spirit and soul as if they're the same thing. They're not the same thing. Okay, even when you go back to the Greek words, they were different things. You know, the word for spirit was more like the word for breath. It was sort of the passing of the wind, whereas the soul was more like the word for mind, psyche. Okay. Pneuma and psyche, right? I think it was. Yeah.
Pneuma, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Very different concepts, very different realities, but the wind comes into being and comes out of being, while, which is the spirit, while the psyche, the mind, is always present. Okay. Now, how does this relate to EVPs? So who are you talking to when you collect EVPs? Are you talking to the dead? Well, there's a few possibilities. Okay. When you are part of the open system, which once you're dead, you are, whether you're aware of it or not, you are. Okay. Your awareness reconnects itself. It's just, it will sometimes struggle with understanding that that's what's happened, because again, it doesn't have rationality to help guide it. All right. This is where we can be instrumental in helping the dead, because we still have rationality and we can impart some of that to them. And this is very vital to what we do in our work when we're trying to help spirits pass on or move over or cross over, however you want to use the terminology. I don't like the word crossover, but you know, it's a little new agey, but it's actually kind of accurate. So it's okay in this context. It's okay to use that. But that's what we're doing, is we're imparting some of our rationality because they don't have any. Okay. So who are you talking to? Well, number one, first possibility is that you are talking to, well, let's make it even more simple than that. You're always talking to what in theosophy is known as the Akashic records, what Carl Jung would have referred to as the collective unconscious. That is the database of all awareness. Anything and everything that has ever been and will ever be is contained there in a timeless state. And it is aware, and it is intelligent, not cognitively intelligent like a brain, but intelligent like a spirit. Okay? It has the fundamental properties of awareness, and it is ancient because it's always been. Okay? It's part of that, the knowledge that always was. Okay? It's kind of the first, to put it another way, for Christian terms, if, you know, for Christians out there, you'll understand it this way. It's the furthest expression of God that exists in creation. So consider it in a way to be the very last aspect of the Holy Spirit. For Christian theological terms, if you need to kind of relate this back to your belief system, that's how you would do it. Okay, because some of this is a very philosophical. I get in trouble all the time. We're going to talk about that too. Get in trouble all the time about being philosophical. They think I need to be in the box, and I'm like, oh, it's Exorcist Bishop Bryan, and I have to only be an exorcist. I can't be anything else. Forget the fact that I've spent my entire life as a teacher of philosophy and as a student of philosophy. Let's forget that. No, he has to be an exorcist. So that means he has to follow the rules of being a pastor. Fuck that. Fuck that. No, that's not how this, I'm a philosopher first. I'm a philosopher that just so happens to be a bishop. Okay? All right. Because that's ultimately what I do. I teach. I'm a teacher, far more than a pastor. And if you're a good pastor, if you're a pastor that's worth a damn, you know how to teach. Right. Okay? Anyway, we're going to get to that in a minute. But let's get back to this. So in reality, all right, all of this is the Akashic Records, all this database of information, and it is aware. You can communicate with it. Now, you might say, well, how do we do that? Well, mediums do this all the time because that's who they're actually talking to. All right? You cannot, and this is going to get a lot of people upset, and I'm sorry, okay? I'm really, truly very sorry for having to be the one to awaken you to this. But you cannot communicate with those in the kingdom of heaven unless God wills it. And let me tell you, when God wills it, he's not going to will it through an EVP. And he's not going to will it through a Ouija board. And he's not going to will it through a medium. It's going to be a direct experience, sometimes an apparition, most of the time a dream that is unique to the individual who needs the message. Okay? And it's going to be undeniably true. And a person's going to have that experience. They're not going to wake up from it and be like, oh my God, I just had a dream. No, they're going to know that was a message.
Profound.
It'll be profound. Okay. Yeah. And it almost never happens. And the saints talked about, Aquinas talked about this. Thomas Aquinas talked about this. Okay. So ghosts will sometimes there'll be an apparition involved. All right. So ghosts will sometimes appear, if God wills it, from those in the kingdom of heaven or part of the kingdom of heaven. We would call that in Catholicism, the church triumphant, or, the beatific vision. Okay. But when for our purposes, that's a rare event. Most of the time that does not happen. So who are these dead that these mediums are connecting with? And they were like, oh, they're on the heaven plane. Oh, they're in the lower realms. They're basically collecting data off of the intelligence, the fundamental awareness of the Akashic Records. And that's what they're communicating to. That's what the EVPs are doing. That's what the Ouija boards are doing. And that's what tarot cards are doing, and divination, runes, I Ching, whatever. It is an archetypal language. Okay, so most of these are going to be in the form of what has been known as omens. These are symbols of communication. Okay, and these symbols will connect us to this because it doesn't communicate in English typically, which is why when it tries to, okay, you're going to get these disjointed, fragmented, ambiguous EVP messages. Now, here's the real danger. The Akashic Records is basically one giant mirror. So most of the information that you're throwing out at it for questions is just reflecting back at you your intentions and your expectations, just like tarot cards do for people that don't know how to use them. So if you go into it with a lot of fear, guess what gets thrown back at you through your Ouija board? A whole shitload of fear.
Doom and gloom reading.
Yep. And then it will manifest even as an egregore, so you get this nice little demon that comes out of your Ouija board, and you know what? And it's like, oh, it is true. They do conjure demons. Well, not the demons you think that you're conjuring. You're conjuring them out of your own ignorance and your own fear. And it's because the Akashic Records are so powerful. They're part of the fundamental properties of the primordial substance of creation itself. It produces this, okay? And we're connected to that all the time as creatures of creation. So we're always interacting with this reality. We just don't know it. And that's because we're not fluent and not taught to be fluent in the language of archetypes. We think that they're just like fragments of our mind. Most of us don't give much thought to them, but they are literally the essence of the spiritual world. When people say that they're talking to a spirit or a spirit's talking to them, this is what that is. That's what that spirit is. It's an archetype. Okay? Even the devil. I hate to break it to you, you Christians that need your devil so badly. I hate to break it to you. The devil is nothing more than that. Okay? That's all the devil is a manifestation of the darkness that you produce as a fallen human creature. And now it has a life of its own because you keep pushing it out there into the ether, and guess what gets pushed back? Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, whatever you want to call it, does not matter. It has all different types of manifestations, but in the end, all it is your own ego and stupidity and ignorance and hatred for your fellow man and all of your sin wrapped up in one nice egregore to torment you for all eternity. And it gives you the benefit of a scapegoat, so you can always blame it instead of yourself when you do wrong. Isn't that convenient, right? So that's all it is. Okay, so when we're talking about EVPs and if a ghost doesn't have consciousness, how can it communicate? It's because it isn't conscious information you're getting. It's intelligent information you're getting, like patterns of who that person was in the ether being pulled out by a skilled medium. And that's what a medium is actually doing, is that when they're legitimate and they're genuine, they're able to use the ether, to use the Akashic records or the collective unconscious, whatever name you want to use. You can use all of them. They're all the same thing. They're all synonyms for this context, okay? In metaphysics, especially, and esotericism. Okay, what a skilled medium's doing is they're just going in and they're able to penetrate beyond the mirror. Okay, so instead where the layman will just get back information that is just a reflection of their own thoughts, feelings, fears, all that stuff, a medium, a skilled one, a genuine one, can actually go in there and read the data and get the information back. Okay, and then if they use tarot cards, they can use divination to do this too. Of course, different tools are going to have different relationships to how the Akashic records respond. So tarot cards are going to be a different thing than what a medium does. But sometimes you'll see mediums that do both. Look at Patty Negri. She's a medium. She uses the Ouija board and she does tarot cards. Okay, and what is she connecting with? The Akashic records. I guarantee you, if I had that conversation with her, if we can ever get her back on this show, she's busy. But if we can ever get her back on this show, and I ask her about this, I guarantee you she'll be like, yep, you know what, Bishop, you're right. That's exactly what it is. So you're talking to not the person who's dead. Mediums don't talk to the person who's dead. They're talking to the imprint in the ether that was left behind. And because that imprint is intelligent and aware, it can respond intelligently back. But it never, for the layperson's not going to produce a whole great deal of effect. Okay, so EVPs are going to sound like a bunch of gibberish most of the time, which they do. And they kind of sound almost like a Rorschach kind of matrix, audio matrixing effect, pareidolia effect, where it's like it sounds like whatever, as soon as somebody says, this is what it says, now you hear it. It's kind of like that.
So when they get sometimes you've seen like the guys in the other shows, they'll get like a full sentence. Is that just tapping into like a clump of information that's stuck together?
And yes, and see, I think that what people like in Ghost Adventures, okay, and I know a lot of people think that they fake this stuff. They don't, okay? They don't. Zach is very skilled at this, and I mean,
they've been doing it since
he's been doing it a long time.
The show started in 2007, and the documentary's in 2004.
It's been a long time, yeah. So I mean, and so anybody that's going to have done it as much as they have and has been as serious about it as they have, are going to be in a way to be able to connect with these things at a deeper level and be able to get even more data out of it. But I guarantee you, if you just got some random person who's never exhibited any kind of mediumistic or psychic ability and then just started collecting EVPs in their home, they'd get some, but they would be very low level. They wouldn't, it wouldn't be much of anything that you could really understand. It'd be like, there's a voice there, but I don't know what it's saying. And it takes a lot of effort to get good at collecting that kind of data, because what you're doing is you're developing a relationship with the Akashic records, and you're having to learn how to navigate it to get a response back that's meaningful. But you're still not talking to the actual individual. You're talking to an imprint, an echo of who they were every single time. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's the answer to the question.
Any questions?
So I hear crickets is what I hear. I guess that was
everybody's
profound.
mind is blown.
I think so.
That's not what I was expecting.
I know they don't want to hear that. Nobody does.
Well, we do have a second question, and you started getting ahead of me, but
Okay.
I'll ask it
All
anyways.
right. Let's go for it.
This is from Tiffany. Is it possible to explain the difference between the spirit and the soul? It should be easy, but they're easily confused by people.
Well, I didn't
So,
really, I did
like
kind
the
of,
analogy that you used on the network.
I did touch on that in the last response, but I didn't really go into the detail because I did talk about we spent the last one talking more about the difference between consciousness and awareness. Now let's talk about the difference between spirit and soul. So I have an old analogy that my students know well. I might have even used it on this show before.
The wine bottle?
The wine bottle.
Yes, I love it. It makes a lot of sense.
It's the easiest way to understand
Right.
it. It's the easiest way to remember it. Okay, so if you're having a hard time trying to like keep this in, because it almost as if your brain wants to reject the data. You're so conditioned to believe your worldview or what you've been taught to believe is true. It's very hard to keep your brain from falling back into those old patterns. And I see it with people all the time. I even see it with my students of 5 years. You know, you can teach something and they get it, and then it's like, and then all of a sudden you're having a conversation and they're back into the old thinking. You got to get them out
It's
of
your
it again.
ego trying to make you
It is.
forget.
It is. And it's natural. So it's not like it's not a problem, like you're doing something wrong. It's natural. Honestly, if it's fighting you that hard, you're probably doing something right. Because it doesn't like you fighting itself that much. But anyway, let's talk about that. So the wine bottle analogy is this. Okay, so you have a bottle of wine. Let's pretend this is a bottle of wine. Actually, we can probably even use it as this. We can
Do
make
you
it a
need a
bottle of
demonstrator
scotch.
to drink it? 'Cause
No, we can make it a bottle of scotch today. Okay, so we can use this as our visual aid today. So here's your bottle, okay, of scotch, single malt scotch, 12-year-old. Okay, and so this is the glass here is like the body. It contains the contents of the scotch inside. So the bottle is the glass bottle's the body, and the spirit is the liquid inside the scotch, the actual liquid. Now, if I take this, God forbid, and smash it, and all that body is now broken, dead, okay, you can never take those pieces back and put them together so it holds scotch again. Even if you tried to glue each little piece back together, it would still never hold scotch again, because it would still never be the watertight seal that it would need when it was a whole piece. So once you break the body, it is now forever lost. It can never do what it once did. It will never look the same. That's kind of like death and decomposition for the body. But whatever this comes in contact with, if it's the right kind of substance, this brown liquid will stain whatever it touches. If it's this table, there'll be a brown residue once it dries. If it gets on your clothing, it leaves a stain. You really see this with red wine. If we're going to use the wine analogy, red wine leaves a stain, right? Okay, so that stain has the properties of what it was, but you can't taste it. You can't drink. You're not going to get drunk on it. All right. The stain can't make you drunk. The stain doesn't necessarily smell like it as good as it would be aerated. It's going to, and as it continues to dry, it will get weaker and weaker and dissipate and can be washed away eventually. That's the ghost. So it's an imprint of what it once was. It's not the thing itself, just like the stain can never make you drunk. Well, it's just like the ghost is not really the person. Okay? You're not really interacting with the person. You're interacting with an imprint of the person. Okay? Has the essence, you can tell, oh, this was scotch. I can smell it. It smells like scotch. But you're never going to be able to get, are you going to get the nuances of the sherry oak? No. You're not going to be able to get that. You're not going to be able to. You think it's going to matter if you spilled a 12-year-old versus a 50-year-old scotch on the stain? You think the stain's going to be like,
Still going to dissipate.
This is a really nice stain. This is a 50-year-old stain instead of a 12-year-old stain. No, it's just an imprint of what once was, but it's never going to be what it is. The essence is lost, just like with a ghost. It's just the imprint. It's not the individual. So that's the spirit, okay? The spirit, literally the spirit, because we call them spirits, right?
Yeah.
So, wine and spirits. Okay, so the spirit. But the essence of the liquid is the part that we can interact with. That is where the qualities are. But what's to make this scotch any different than some bathtub gin upstairs? Okay, or some crap and moonshine that some guy in the woods is making. Why should this one be worth $100? Well, this is not $100 bottle, but I think what, $70? I think this one is 60, 60 or 70,
75, 79.
Okay, so $70.
Mid range.
All right, so I've got this is a bottle of Macallan 12 year for $70, and I've got an Oscuro upstairs that is over $1,000. It's both Macallan. Okay, so why is this one only $70 and that one up there is over $1,000? Why? What? It's just liquid inside. It's just whiskey, right? It's just that's the soul. That's the quality of the soul is the nuance, the flavor, the vintage if it has one, or the age statement.
You used to call it the vintage.
In the wine, it's a vintage. If it's a year, there's vintage Scotch. There's Scotch that you can get by year. But when it says 12 years like this is called an age statement. That tells you something about what that spirit is. That's the quality. And the spirit in this, the liquid, is just contained to this bottle. But the 12-year-old age statement of Macallan could be in cases and cases all over the world because the soul is more pervasive and can inhabit and animate numerous spirits. And that's what a soul is, that we even call them soul families. I think people tend to, again, this is a Christian error, the idea that, I'm going to lose my soul. I sold my soul to the devil.
No, you didn't.
You can't, because you don't have a soul. A soul has you, and that soul belongs to God and is always in God's possession. Losing your soul is you walking away from it. The spirit. And when you no longer have, when a spirit and a body no longer have a connection to the soul that animates it, it is annihilated, and that's what we call hell. So it's true that the people in hell have lost their souls. It's because the soul has walked away, or they've walked away from the soul. They haven't been able to get, it's nothing that they possess. You don't own your soul. You don't have one. It has you. Okay. And this is just a better way of looking at it, a more accurate way of looking at it, and a less egotistical way of looking at it. And it also shows how pervasive a soul is. And in fact, I would say, and this is getting very metaphysical and is far beyond the scope of this question or this show, more suited to my Forbidden Truth class that I teach on Saturdays, but I'll share with you. The reality is there's actually only about 16 souls in the entire world. Only 16. And we all belong to one of those 16 families.
It's like the Battlestar Galactica with the Cylons. 7 of 9.
There you go.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Or is that?
That's Star Trek. That's the Borg.
Yeah.
That's Voyager.
Battlestar Galactica has a similar thing where they have
thing.
I think it's 9 or 10 different people they make Cylons out of.
That's right.
They have numbers instead of names.
So the difference between spirit and soul, using that analogy, is that the spirit is the incorporeal part of the physical. So you have a human being has a physical body, which is the corporeal part, and in the incorporeal part of their body, which is the spirit, and that is the realm of the mind. Okay, so that's why the word psyche is related here. Okay, but when you talk about the soul is what animates, that brings life to that body and spirit. And when that connection is severed, which is what happens if what the church calls salvation is not achieved, then both the body and spirit simply dissipate into nothing. The soul returns to God and continues to do what the soul does. It animates all of the countless others that particular type of soul animates. And that's a hard thing for people because you're being conditioned to think that you've got some individual thing, your little special thing. You do have a little special thing. You are a temple of the Holy Spirit too. So not only is your body inhabited by the Spirit, but you're also inhabited by the presence of God. And that's the connection of the soul. The soul gives you that connection. But if God steps away from you for just a moment, the Holy Spirit leaves you for just a moment, you cease to exist. All right? You're talking Thomas Aquinas, his own understanding of metaphysics is very Christian in its theology and its context. It's hard for people to grasp because, let's face it, most of you out there are just content to read your Bibles in English, your good old King James, okay? And that's how as far as you go. And then for all of the nitty-gritty stuff, you go to some church and listen to some pastor ramble at you for 2 hours. But you're not actually doing the work to become academically proficient in theology. So naturally, you're not going to know the depths of this unless you actually spend time making it a life study like I have. Well, all you have been worried about getting your jobs and, getting a good career and, starting a family and buying a house and having all sorts of cars and going on vacation. People like me have spent their entire life studying this, all right, at the expense of everything else. And thank God I was able to get a very understanding wife that put up with that. And son, too, because I'm not an easy person to live with because of this. Okay. And there's a lot of sacrifices involved in it, which most people don't want to make. But so what you have to do is, unless you want to do the work yourself, then you're going to have to take my word for it. Okay. And I challenge you, go ahead and do what I did. Study what I've studied. Devote your life to it like I have. 50 years like I have. Okay. And then tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think you will. So Brandon, I don't know. Does that clarify it enough, or do we need to elaborate more?
Why do you do this to me? I now have 100 more questions after that one answer.
Well, we have a lot of time, and there's no Father Chris, so go for it. I mean, we can keep going with we can just keep going all night like this.
well, we do have one last question, and I found this one on Facebook, one of your interesting conversations, from a guy named Chris. He said, well, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement, but we can answer it. Okay. He says, I thought divination was a doorway for the demons to enter our reality. Thought this was against the first commandment. Like, why is it here? Just saying.
Okay, so let's talk about the first commandment part first. Okay, first of all, divination only would violate the first commandment if it is being used deterministically. So in a fortune-telling context, yes, fortune-telling at its base level is against the first commandment, because what you're basically doing is you're robbing God of his will, making it seem as though nothing can happen now that the cards have said, this is it. This is why it's so dangerous to ask questions like, will I marry so-and-so? Will I get this job? When you ask questions like that of a divination tool like tarot cards, what you're doing is you're giving away all your power as a creature of creation, as an independent thinker, and as a temple of the Holy Spirit, and now deterministically letting the archetypes decide instead of God what your future is going to be. And because it works so perfectly, the reflection of the ether, that if you put in an expectation that this is what you're going to get, then that's what it produces. And then what it does is it robs you of your relationship to God to make your life better. That's against the first commandment. And that's why fortune telling in its general sense is prohibited and is considered a sinful act because of its deterministic nature. But archetypal communication is a completely different matter. And just like I'm a bishop and I can be a teacher of philosophy too, tarot cards can be fortune-telling tools, or more importantly, used as a language for becoming fluent in the language of the archetypes. Okay, so it's how you want to use it. So the way I use it is not a violation of the first commandment, but I don't tell fortunes. What I do is I communicate with archetypes. Okay, and then I let people use their relationship to God to determine the outcome based upon what energy is available to them. Okay, and that is just the energy of creation at their present time. It's not deterministic at all. You decide, you determine what happens with that energy, not the cards, not the spirits, and certainly not the ether. But the first part of the question was whether they conjure demons. Well, Yeah, they can, because I've already kind of said that in the first answers to the other questions. If you project fear into the Akashic records, whatever the tool is that you're using, be it a Ouija board, tarot cards, or your own mind, then what you get back through that tool is going to be an egregore of fear. And the more you put into it, the more powerful it is. The more fear that's behind it, and the more sin and hatred and anger and anything else that might be in you that you put out there, that gets reflected back.
It's like these kids that go to parties and play with the Ouija board, and no one's taking it seriously, and they're being disrespectful. That can turn around on you real quick,
real fast,
because the archetypes that you're connecting with will take advantage of that. Like, oh, these are stupid kids, we're going to show them something,
yes.
And that's how you end up getting attachments, and it's just best to stay away from it, especially if you're not properly trained in how to use it.
Exactly. And that's what we mean by properly trained. And, but see, when you go to the New Age bookstore, or at least the New Age section of your local Barnes and Noble, or find them on Amazon or whatever, these publishers are just interested in selling you books. So they're not going to give you a crash course, or even a, better yet, a detailed course on how to protect yourself and how to do it right by understanding the metaphysics behind it. What I'm teaching you is ancient esotericism. That's it. Okay. The ancients knew all this. This is why there were all these prohibitions in the Bible and everything else. But it's not what modern people think it is. Now they just think that, oh, they're of the devil. No, they're not of the devil. You're of the devil. That's the problem. You're of the devil. Okay, and you haven't done anything about that, because you just want to dwell in sin, like we see with that that photographer that keeps harassing me on the Exorcist Bishop page on Facebook. Okay, she's some nutcase evangelical Christian who keeps harassing people on my page, harassing me, quoting out Bible verses as if they're weapons, her own personal arsenal of God's word, that she can use in the most vindictive, malicious of ways. Okay, and this is what people do, and they think that this is holiness, when it's just pure evil. It's just pure evil, and but they won't accept that of themselves. They think they think too highly of themselves. And it's going to be like a really rude awakening when they finally actually do face God, because it's not going to be what they were hoping for, and that's because they never did any preparation. They have no relationship with him, evidenced by the way they act and treat other people. The Bible says one thing that is the best gem in the Bible is that by their fruits you will know them. Okay, so all I ever have to do is I have to look at not what they say, not how they act, not if they use fuck or not, okay, as a word, all right? But what fruits have they produced? What have they actually done for people? Okay, I know I've done a lot. All right, nobody that has ever researched my life could ever say, you know what, Bishop, you did squat shit. So I know that my fruits speak for themselves. Okay, I'm not a holy man, but I know that I at least have done the best that I could in sincerity to be as holy as I'm capable of. Okay, and I fail miserably at it. But when people are just out there creating havoc, trolling people, trolling pastors like this woman does, it's just pure evil.
Well, you're not going to win any. I mean, if you can change one person's heart, your mission's complete.
Yeah.
Acting the way that, and I read the stuff. I didn't entertain her because it was just laughable to me. But people like that, who are you trying to bring to Christ through that kind of vitriol? You're not.
No, you're driving them away.
You're driving them away, just like's happened to most of us watching this show. We've all been driven away from the church once, twice, 3 times sometimes.
Thank you.
And this is exactly why.
Yeah.
So I read through it and I got angry and I started to type, and I was like, no, just let it go.
I see that, and I'm like, this is why people have left the church, because of people
exactly
like that, and that's pure evil.
Right.
That's evil. That's true evil. Okay, and that doesn't come from Satan or some fallen angel or some devil hiding on your shoulder or in your closet. All right, that comes right out of the darkness of your own selfish heart.
Well, I think you said this one time, a few years ago, maybe on this show or when we were just having one of our talks over cigars and scotch. You said that if If it brings people together, it's of God. If it drives them apart, it's from Satan.
Yeah.
The
Because the Holy Spirit binds
right.
and Satan tears apart.
Tears apart.
We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
One more time and one more night without your hands, without me in your arms. Looking back, I wonder why I didn't show you how deep is my love. Let's talk about love. Tell me, what do you like? Tell me, where do you want to see me naked? Let's talk about love. Tell me, what do you like? Tell me, what do you like? La 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 love. Let's talk about Let's talk about love. Let's talk about la 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 love. Let's talk about I'm gonna be better, better than you thought. I promise I won't jealous, you don't deserve it all. I'm gonna be better, 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 better. Let's talk about Let's talk about Let's talk about love. Let's talk about la 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 love.
It's the calm before the storm. Things aren't as they were before. You best start bracing. Did you think you could keep us out? Shut the gates, forget us now. The tides are changing. Can you hear the sound? Can't stop us now. We're not back in town, know what we're doing. Things are about to change, it's evolution. Once you shake the ground, you feel it moving. We're the revolution. Can you hear the sound? We're the revolution. With the ground beneath your feet, with a whisper in the trees. Do you feel us watching? Hunger in our eyes, victories on our minds. It's our time to rise. Can you hear the sound? Can't stop us now. We're not back in town, know what we're doing. Things are about to change, it's evolution. Once you shake the ground, you feel it moving. We're the revolution. Can you hear the sound? We're the revolution. to end. Things are about to change, it's evolution. Voices shake the ground, you feel it moving with the revolution.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second part of Vestiges After Dark. Father Chris is still not with us, unfortunately, and probably is not going to happen. But don't worry, we've got you covered. Brandon's got you covered, it sounds like. He's got a lot of questions, and there's a lot that we've talked about that we can digest over the next 2 hours. But right now, go ahead and start asking your questions in the chat if you haven't already. Brandon and Jamie will be looking for them. You can also call into the show at 718-362-6380. That's 718-362-6380. Enter PIN number 855-4111 to get put into the queue. That's 855-4111. And also make sure that if you are international and would like to call us free, you can just use Skype, free of charge, by dialing up Eye of the Seer, EYEOF-THESEER. We'll be right back in just a moment. Yeah, so see, we put out the esoteric mysticism oracle. I decided to make it available to the general public, and I really didn't want to. I really thought it was going to be a mistake to do so, but you know, we went ahead and did it anyway, just because. It seemed to make sense. It seemed to make sense to be able to offer it for those who might want it, who did see it on the show when I shared it a few shows ago, and just to leave it up for a week. We're only going to leave it on for a week, and that's because well, I want my students to have it, and we're doing this through a private publishing. Okay, it's not self-publishing, but it's not definitely publishing through a larger publisher who would be ordering tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different copies, which brings the per unit price down. So this woman was yelling at me on Facebook for, first of all, having oracle cards, on my page, because apparently I'm as a Christian and an exorcist and a bishop and a pastor, I'm not supposed to, I guess, offer something like that. I don't work for you and I don't need your approval for doing anything that I do. And like I said, I'm a philosopher first. I'm a bishop second. Okay. So yeah, deal with it. Tough. But anyway, she went ahead and started calling me a false prophet, an antichrist.
Thief.
A thief.
Yeah.
She put posts from different links on Amazon from other decks that are like $30, and it's like, okay, great, yeah, those are professionally published decks, probably. The per unit price that we have from the people that are printing our decks is $75 a deck. Okay, that's including the shipping to get it out to us, and then remember, we got to ship it back out. Okay, so the price of printing, the shipping to get the product to us, the shipping to send it out to those of you who buy it, that's already $75. Okay, and so we put the price at $90 so that the church gets a $15 profit on each unit, which is nominal. It's not going to make any difference. And I think we've only had a few people of interest anyway. It was really just to make it available for those who found value in it. But yeah, I realize $90 is expensive, but don't complain to me. It's not my fault. I'm not trying to collect a lot of money. That's not a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a tarot deck though. And, I'm sorry, but bitch at the printer because that's the price that we got, and if I knew I could sell it to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, I would. But I know that's not going to happen. So I can't order the bulk that's necessary to bring that price down to something better. But it is available right now. So if you want to get one, so you can go over to the esoteric, you can go to the Exorcist Bishop, at Exorcist Bishop on Facebook, and the link is there. You'll have to scroll down a little bit, and then you'll have to work through all of the vitriol from this photographer. But it's there. And then you can also go on Instagram at Exorcist Bishop, and there's look for the picture of the cards, and then the link is in the comments. Okay, it's only going to be available until Saturday. So if you want one, it's $90. Like I said, the church makes about $15 on this. The rest of it is the cost of production and shipping. And it's $90, and you can have a copy for yourself. Okay, if you want something from the work that we have done. But I do apologize for its price. But remember, I never intended to make this available to the general public, which is part of the reason why it is so expensive, because we're just ordering a few. It's just a handful, less than the 20 copies, honestly. It costs a lot to produce that. Okay. So calling in from the 931 area code in Tennessee. Hello, you are on the air.
Hello, this is April. I'm the one that Brandon asked the first question about earlier.
Yes.
Hey, Miss April.
Hello.
How are you guys tonight?
We're doing
good.
great, and thank you for calling in. Good to finally speak with you, and voice to voice.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that there's a lot of things that you answered, and of course there's several things that, of course, it opens up more doors. I can have like 20 more questions.
He tends to do that,
but I won't ask all of those.
Well, we're here for the next hour and a half, so we'll do as many as you want.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
So I guess I wanted to kind of go back to the one about of course, I do some paranormal investigations, and really a lot of the stuff you said too crosses over to my day job. Mm-hmm. And my day job, I'm a counselor. So the stuff that you're talking about, like the collective consciousness and those kinds of things, I've done a lot of study with that under Carl Jung and et cetera. So, and the archetypes, some of those things are all very familiar to me.
Sure.
My question, I guess, kind of going back to the paranormal aspect is when you were talking about kind of the degradation of the spirit and stuff, I have witnessed like what seems to be interactive responses. For example, someone would have two flashlights and they'll have them loosened a little bit and they'll say, the one on the right is a yes answer, the one on the left is a no answer. And can you give me the yes answer? And it seems to be the responses are accurate.
Sure. And they will be. They will be accurate because the entirety of the cosmos is aware, and it's intelligently aware, not intelligent in a cognitive sense, intelligent in a fundamental awareness sense. Okay. So it's not just aware in the sense that it, like an insect is aware that, you're walking by and it reacts to the vibration of your footsteps. Not in that sense of awareness. It's aware in a fundamental sense that it actually knows what you are and who you are and what your intentions are. And it can respond to those intentions and it will reflect those intentions. So a lot of times, when a novice or somebody that really doesn't know what they're doing starts playing around with EVP or gets into ghost hunting for the fun of it, for recreational purposes, and they have no real experience with it, they just start doing it, which is a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I mean, you always have to start somewhere, don't you? Very few of us are going to have access to professional institutions that we can just like walk into and make this sort of like a career in parapsychology. That's less common. And so, I'm not saying this to criticize people that are novices, but one of the things I do notice with novices is that they will immediately get results that are fascinating, and that kind of encourages them to want to do more of it. But what they're not necessarily understanding is what it is that they're talking to and just how aware the cosmos is around them, and how much effect that intention has on it. So there's one of two possibilities with EVPs typically. I mean, there's a few others that are less common, but the two most common possibilities with EVP are that most of the time it is just reflecting your expectations of what you are expecting to see or wanting. So if you put out into the ether that this place is haunted and you want to talk to someone, and you even did some background on the site and you said, oh, there's a person that died here, or there was a woman that lived here and she's miserable and her husband came in and killed her.
Little Timmy, are you here?
Yeah, yes.
Little Timmy?
Yes. And then all of a sudden you hear a child say, I'm here.
I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. It's because the mirror that the universe is reflects back intelligently. So it can respond intelligently to you through the patterns of whatever it is that it's got to work with, which in most cases is going to be you, which is why people tend to feel drained after a paranormal experience or a ghost hunt. They will always say, oh, it's the ghost using my energy. Yeah, not really. It's really the fact that it takes so much of your energy to be able to project that out to get the kind of energy or exchange an energy with that Akashic records or that ether or collective unconscious. Again, whichever word you feel more comfortable using, it's all applicable to this thing. I like the ether a lot. I use that word a lot because that's mostly what it is. It's just a big reflective membrane of incorporeal stuff. Call it dark matter, if you will. But it is aware, and it is intelligently aware, and it can respond to us intelligently in the same way. It knows what we want. It knows what our intentions are, and it can respond in kind. For skilled people. Now, this is people that actually do have some either natural, innate, psychic, or medium ability, or people that have worked with, ghost hunting or ghost hunting tools for a while and have developed a relationship with it. They can start to penetrate beyond the mirror reflection aspect, and then can actually collect the data that's there. So everything you do, every thought you've had, every feeling you have, everything that you've ever felt and thought, and everything you ever will think or thought is already collected in the collective unconscious. Literally, time does not have any bearing there. So even if you haven't thought or felt it yet, it's already there because you will think and feel it. And that can also be tapped into by a skilled medium or psychic, and that information can be collected. And to the psychic, it responds as if it's talking to the person itself, when really what it is it's talking to the pattern of what that person was or is, but it's not actually the individual. And this is why sometimes people have reported hauntings of living people. Mm-hmm. This is why that happens, because that data is there. Whether you're alive or dead, it's not relevant to the collective unconscious. It's already there. It's always been there. Life and death are not factors in this. But because when you're going ghost hunting, you're expecting to talk to the dead people, then skilled mediums are going to pick up data from dead people. But I guarantee you, if a medium tried to test this theory, and they've done it because we've done this, and tried to talk to living people the same way that they connect with dead people, they get responses from living people too. And I've even told some of my fans, or not my fans, but the fans of Ghost Adventures, to go back and watch the Ogden possession episode that I was in.
Oh yeah.
And you can clearly hear when Aaron's in the closet collecting EVP, and it says something about Bishop Bryan or Bishop or something. It's clearly my voice.
It said Bishop.
It's my voice. I was in the garage at the nerve center. I was not in the house. I was not on a walkie, and the EVP collected was my voice saying it. So, and that's a living EVP. It's not a dead. I'm not dead, not yet. But it's because the data's already out there.
But no, that's mimicking.
Yeah, well, they'll get into and this is actually what doppelganger is. Right. Honestly, is a doppelganger is an egregore that's produced out of a living person. In most cases, okay, in most cases. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, okay? The universe is strange, and there's a lot of possibilities out there. There's a lot of different types of incorporeal beings. I call them species because in a lot of ways that's what they are. They're species of different incorporeal beings, just like we have species of corporeal beings. So it's like, we have Homo sapiens like us, but there's also like, you got dogs and cats, and you got mosquitoes and beetles, and you got roaches and birds and everything, okay? These are all different species of corporeal beings. Just like that, in the incorporeal part of the cosmos, which is a lot larger than the corporeal part, that is where you will see a plethora of incorporeal species. And some of them are very sophisticated, just like here. So yeah, you have a human being, a whale, a cat. These are more sophisticated types of creatures, right? But mosquitoes and beetles, not too sophisticated. So, your cat can be trained. He can talk to you. He can communicate with you. He desires relationship. A mosquito doesn't. Okay. So there's different levels of sophistication there. And the same is true in the incorporeal. There's going to be ones that are very sophisticated and ones that are not. And the ones that are not are going to be low-level elementals, and they can't really do much except make you sick. And then there's high-level elementals like jinn that can actually create images that look like people, and they produce a doppelganger effect. But that's more rare, okay? So most of the time, what you're connecting with is just a reflection of your intentions. And then if you're really skilled, then you can just read the data that's in that Akashic record of the entirety of creation. So that's why when you're doing an active EVP and you're communicating and it's responding in real time to you, that's why it's able to do that. Either one of those is possible. So if it's just your intention, then it's just reflecting back what you're intending to get, even if it's a subconscious intention. But if you're skilled and you're able to operate at a more of a psychic or genuine medium level, then you're able to read the pattern of a person who was dead and get information back. And that pattern can respond just as if the person is there with you. And for the medium, it will feel as though they're talking to the person. And sometimes mediums will even see the person as if they're like right in front of you, just like, Jamie and I talking right here, that real. But it's still not the person. It's just an intelligent pattern that is of the person, but it's just a reflection of what they were. And that's, I think, what makes it kind of difficult for people to understand. So I told you in the chat, or on the message boards on the Nicolayan network too, or I was actually telling Brandon, you mentioned it too, that we were going. I said, watch Doctor Who, The Silence in the Library. It's a two-parter. The first one's called Silence in the Library. Second one, I forget what it was called, but it's a two-parter story, and it has a perfect example of this. Without even trying. It's like you can see the Akashic records, the archetypes will just sort of bleed into our stories, and it tells the truth through fiction, to the point that the fiction actually becomes more real than real life, because it's telling a higher truth. And this is the stuff that myths and legends are made of. They're more true than normal, ordinary history, because it connects to this higher level of reality, and it teaches us so much about what's out there and how it works and how the universe works. But ultimately what it comes down to is we don't realize how powerful we are, and we're not taught how to channel or understand that. We're given a kindergarten spirituality if we're lucky. Today, you might not even get a spirituality. It's almost like, you don't even send your kid to school. Just let them I guess, vegetate. But some of us grow up in a church or have some kind of spiritual foundation to work with. But even the best ones are going to be kindergarten level at best. So they're just not going to get into the reality of how far it goes metaphysically or esoterically. And this is why people join secret societies like, the Masons, or they join, the Hermetic orders and the Golden Dawn, and because they want graduate level spirituality. And they're going to go where they can find it. And I'm not endorsing any of those systems. That, believe me, every secret society has its problems, just like every church has its problems. Some good, some really not so good. But that's up to you to decide whether or not you can derive some kind of benefit from that if it applies to you. But overall, for the average person, we're working at a kindergarten level of spirituality. So what do kindergarten kids understand about the world? It's magical to them, right? Some of them don't even understand the finality of death. At 5 years old, you might not fully understand that when your mom or dad dies, they're not coming back. It takes a while before you get that sort of permanence understanding and the seriousness of death. And that's where we're at. We have a kindergarten level of God, understanding God, of the afterlife, of things like notions like heaven and hell. And we're not really understanding what these things actually are. We just know the stories we've been told, and we keep teaching those same kindergarten level fairy tale stories instead of graduating to the next level and saying, well, here it is. And unfortunately, it's compounded by also the fact that now we have another component to deal with, and that is science acting like it's all bullshit. And if you really want to have a graduate level understanding of reality, well, then you need to become an atheist and abandon all of it and deal with just rational observation. Well, okay, that's great for the corporeal world, but it doesn't do much for the incorporeal world, which is much larger and much greater, and only really theoretical and quantum physicists understand this in science. So that's the issue. So I'll give you a chance now to respond, and I'll clarify whatever you might have about this, because I know that's a lot to digest.
I mean, yeah, that is a lot to digest. So I'm not exactly sure what to ask next with regards to that. But what I think I'm hearing you say basically is that whatever we go into, or our intentions when we go into a situation, it is basically what we're getting back. Kind of that law of attraction that everybody's talking about now.
Right.
That is exactly how that works. Yeah, that's how it works. And that's really the mechanics of it. So that's like the fundamentals behind the experience. So again, we like to think experientially, but we don't necessarily see the inner working. So it's kind of like we're very familiar with what we look like on the outside, but we're not so familiar with what we look like on the inside. It takes kind of like a biologist or a doctor to see that, but I mean, if you get a cut on your arm, you got a cut on your arm. But if you've got a clogged artery that, is about to cause a stroke or a heart attack, you don't really know how to even see that. You don't even have the equipment to see that. It's kind of like that with the spiritual life. We're used to the surface stuff. So we understand things like, okay, there's like some kind of continuation of awareness, or, there's an afterlife. If people have had paranormal or spiritual experiences, they don't doubt the existence of these things. The only people that doubt these things typically are people that have no capacity to experience them. So experience becomes sort of the foundation to it, and it's going to be very unique to each person because the incorporeal world is very malleable. It's unlike the physical world, the corporeal world, which is consistent. The incorporeal world kind of shapes itself around you. So that's why a person can be of faith and say they have no doubts of the existence of Jesus Christ and his death on the cross and his salvation and all the components of Christian religion. Then you have an atheist that looks at that and say, you're a lunatic. You're delusional. None of that's real. It's because the experiences are independent, and the atheist isn't making those kind of connections where the person of faith is. It's easy to say because it's all incorporeal and it's all malleable and it doesn't follow the rules of the scientific method of consistency of observation, that they say, well, it can't be real then. But like we've talked about in this season before, for a metaphysician, for, professionals in philosophy and esotericism, what's real is not what is observationally consistent and provable. What's real is what endures forever. And there's not much in our universe that endures forever. Nothing lasts forever. Not even the stars, will last forever. Not even the galaxies themselves. All of it will burn out. But the archetypes will always endure. That's the true reality. And that's where all the myths and all the legends and all of the stories and all of the incorporeal experience comes from. It all comes from that, and how we connect to that. It's unique to each individual. So it seems like it can't possibly be real because it's too independent. And one person can experience something, another person can't. So it feels like it's all in their head. But yeah, everything is all in our head, but that doesn't make it any less real, because what's real is what endures forever. And these archetypes were here before us, and they will be here long after us. So I think the challenge is in this, in understanding this kind of stuff. Okay. And it gets very deep and very philosophical, but it has to. Okay. We can try to talk about it at a new agey sort of paranormal level, but the problem is, and I think this is the real toxicity of paranormal television, of which I'm a part. But, I think I'm on the best show out there. I really do. And Jamie too. We're on the best show out there. But one of the problems, I think, of paranormal television is it trivializes it down. It reduces it down to just one type of experience, and it locks into that. That's what I like about Ghost Adventures. They kind of go outside the box. Not many people are willing to have me on, and they have me on. That show has me on. And that's because Zach goes outside the box. But most people stay in the box. And so what's the box right now? Well, the box is you die, and some people don't cross over, and then they stick around, they haunt, and we can talk to them with EVPs and, full spectrum cameras and collect orbs and all this stuff. And this becomes sort of the model. And it's not wrong, but we have to understand it is still a fairy tale way of looking at what's actually happening. So look at the story of the boy who cried wolf. Okay, that's not a real person. It's not a real story about a real person, but it tells a truth. We know that if we consistently go through life lying about things, when something serious happens, no one's going to believe us. Yeah. there's an underlying truth, even though that's a mythical story. There's an underlying greater truth to it. And my problem with paranormal television is that it stays at the fairy tale level and it doesn't focus enough on the meaning. All right. And so right now we just create models to understand reality because that's all we have access to. Okay. Our brain is not capable of understanding anything more than that. So what it does is it has to put together a story that makes sense. And the story always makes sense. And the story is always true. However, only at the mythical level. Even your life is only true at the mythical level. Okay. It's not true in an essential level. What are you doing here essentially? What are we doing here? All the billions of people, like ants on an anthill on this planet just floating through the vastness of space. What the hell is that? Okay, but we think we got it all figured out, don't we? Because we got our jobs and we got our money and we got, we go and we start families and we live our lives and we buy our health insurance and we worry about wars and COVID-19 and vaccinations and all this stuff. And in the end, we are just billions of little tiny insignificant things floating on this giant insignificant thing through the vastness of nothing. But we don't think of it from that greater perspective and why that is or what that means. We just see it at the mythical level. Our lives, the story of our lives that we've created for ourselves collectively. Because, I helped create some of your story. You helped to create some of mine. Everyone you come in contact with, you're helping them create their story. And they're helping to create yours. And so it becomes this big collective myth. And we start to believe it. We start to think that that's what it is, but we're not looking under the surface to understand it. So the esotericist is throwing the myth out, not to the sense that says it's nothing, it's meaningless, but saying we need to understand the mechanics of it and what is it really showing us. And that's what's lacking, I think, in our work. So for people that are in the field, okay, and by the field, I mean the field of ghost hunting and the paranormal field. It's not really a field because I don't think there's a whole lot of people actually doing it legitimately who get paid to do it. Okay. So it's not really a job or a career, but people that do it, in a serious way, in a genuine way, not for fun, not for recreation, but because they really want to either understand it in the sense that they're doing academic research, even if it's not academic, it's just research, or they're doing it from the vantage point that they want to help people, okay, people that are either experiencing paranormal problems or, even the dead who are experiencing the trials and tribulations of what comes next and not knowing how to manage that. And then we can help them move on. People that are doing it for those reasons, okay, at least it is important, I think, for them to understand that we can use any of these models and they're all true as long as we understand that they're still just models and they're not literally true. We need to seek the genuine, authentic truth that operates underneath the surface of it. So I think that for anybody who wants to work in the esoteric or paranormal fields, they need to do it as an esotericist would and less like a ghost hunter. Personally, that's just I guess you could call it a bias, Jamie. I don't know. But that's my position on it is that I think that will do more good in the end to be able to understand
bias
it.
Based on experience.
It is. And it's kind of like until I find a better one, that's in my experience, that's the best one I've come across. And it works for me. I mean, I'm very successful at what I do because this methodology that I use works. And I do teach it. I teach it to, my students. And I think I wouldn't have students the same students for 5 years now and no end in sight. Okay, this class keeps on going and going. I don't think I'd have that if they did not see some of the value, and the truth underneath the surface of what I teach them, and that's why I've been so successful at doing this. I just wish more people in the world were actually interested in getting to the bottom of things. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm kind of rambling now, but your question brought a lot of thoughts to my mind, and I'm kind kind of fascinated by it. So, take me where you want me to go.
I mean, I think that was. I think I'm in a position where I really enjoy the ghost hunt part of it because I enjoy having the responses where it's like, oh yeah, so there's some kind of validation or confirmation of what we feel like is going on. But I'm also to the point of where I'm moving beyond that to more of the philosophical kind of stuff, trying to recognize the kind of the bigger picture and that kind of stuff.
Good.
And, that's why I started listening to your podcast. I don't watch the YouTube video as much. I listen to the podcast because 3 hours in one setting is a lot.
Yeah.
But I am trying to, I really like learning, and that also kind of moves me in a little bit different direction too. One of the things that I deal with, like in my day job, is I have a lot of people that I work with who are struggling with like a spiritual crisis. And they live in this area, which is, we're right in the Bible Belt, and it's very conservative, very judgmental here. And a lot of the people that I deal with are like, there's more to spirituality than what's in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I tell them about your podcast.
Okay.
And I say, check this out, see what you think. And I think that it's helped a lot of people. I've got you at least 3 new followers besides myself.
Oh, that's great.
But Brandon connected me with you first, but then I've gotten 3 more after that.
Yeah.
But, it's just, there is more. I feel like there's so much more out there. And I've always been kind of the perspective that, yes, I believe the Bible is good because it's got good values for us to follow. It's got a good historical reference, things like that. But I do feel like some of the other faiths and belief systems have good stuff too. And where does me personally, where do I fit in all that?
Yeah.
And I guess I'm rambling now too. But.
You're making great sense actually, because it really inspires me to think about that. I think one of the problems with religion is this erroneous idea that this is the only thing that you're allowed to believe. Like once you choose one, this is it. This is all that you can do, and you can't step outside that boundary, which is completely wrong. I don't even know really where that, I kind of know where that comes from. It comes from, I think, it comes from years of oppression, because the Israelites were constantly oppressed by all of the different belief systems around them. And theirs was so unique to all the other ones around them that they got an isolationist approach to religion, and Christianity adopted that same isolationist approach. So it's kind of like extreme nationalism, but instead of about your country, it's about your religion, to the point that everyone else has to be wrong for you to be right. And that's just not how religion operates. It's not the correct use of religion. I, as a syncretist, have always been like the kind of person that says we need to, in order to understand the fundamentals of anything that's going on, we have to look at what everybody believes, because everyone's getting a little piece of that picture.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It's all connected.
Right.
And in my experience, because I've done it all, I've tried it all, I've experienced it all, at least as much as I could. There's always going to be little ones that I couldn't connect. I don't know I've never practiced Shinto, but I know a little bit about it, but we're going to talk about that next week, is it? I think. There's a few that I don't know too much about, but for the most part, I've tried or interacted with the majority of it. And Buddhism, particularly Vajrayana, Tibetan Buddhism, is the one that I have found to be the most useful in understanding the parts that Christianity leaves out. Okay, and there's reasons for that too. It's not as though Christianity is trying to be incomplete or that it's ignorant. It's that the focuses are different, and that's why you need both. In my opinion, you need to have a little bit of both, because in Christianity, the goal is, you have to understand, even the Bible. Okay, the Bible isn't an encyclopedia of everything. What it is it's a rule book. It's a guidebook, even not even a rule book. I'd say it's a guidebook for attaining salvation, the least difficult path to salvation. Okay. which is what every religion is ultimately trying to do, is trying to bring us to that state that we have intrinsically lost, perfection, our connection to God. Every religion around the world is trying to connect us to that higher reality, okay? Because it senses, it feels that we're disconnected from it. We need to reconnect to it. And so Christianity has this in a very deliberate, grandiose way: salvation, the kingdom of heaven. And so that's its focus. That's all it's there to do. It's not there to talk about anything other than how to do that. So it's not going to go into the perils of the immediate risks of the afterlife, because if you're doing the Christian message correctly, this becomes irrelevant. And also what it does is it just indicates that if you don't achieve salvation, things don't go too well for you. And it just leaves it at that. Buddhism tells you why. Buddhism tells you exactly why that's a problem. But it doesn't talk about salvation, because for Buddhism, that's not its goal. Its goal is not to get you to reconnect with God. Its goal is to get you to see things the way they actually are, because it would say that there's no point in even trying to connect with God until you're able to see things the way they really are. Whereas Christianity says, well, you're never going to see things the way they really are because you're just too broken. So at least understand Jesus, and then he'll help you get there the rest of the way. Both are true. Both are true. But, one tells you the whys of where the other one fails to go. So I think, April, it's very important to do exactly what you said, to understand at least that, we have all these wonderful religions, and I would not be a Catholic bishop if I didn't feel that Christianity was the paramount one. Okay. But I chose that one. I chose it. It kind of chose me too, but I wasn't like raised into it. My parents were kind of loosely Catholic, but we never practiced. There was no interest in going to church or anything like that. Okay. So it wasn't as though I was conditioned to be what I am now. Because as soon as I was out of the house, I did all sorts of different things, the least of which, after I had my little bouts with seminary and the monasteries, I went off and did other things, and I practiced different religions. I came back to this one because after I had gone and seen everything, this is the one that made the most sense, but only after I saw it through the lens of Buddhism. Okay, did it start to make sense to me. And that's important. And I honestly, I beg people to not abandon your faith in the church or Jesus Christ or to hold that sacred and dear, but don't go at it as if this is the only knowledge you have that's out there. There's so much more, and it's helpful to know it's not that it's Jesus and everything else is demons. It's not. And that's a very arrogant, and I would say it's a very toxic way of living your life, to think that that you've got it right, everyone else has got it wrong. That's the very epitome of egotism, in my opinion. So I think that's very unhealthy. It's not going to get you the truth. It's not going to show you the truth. But you have to be strong-willed. I think what Christians act this way is they're like, oh my God, you might go off and become led astray, but why are you so weak that you would be led astray? The search for truth should not lead you away from Jesus. It should give you a deeper understanding of Jesus. And that's what it did for me, and I think, April, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you understand that.
I totally understand it. To me, it's kind of like, it's the difference between looking at things in 2D and looking at things in, say, 4D. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't look at the different perspectives, then I think you're missing part of the information. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're doing a disservice to yourself, really, because You're not, kind of like what you said, you're not getting the full picture. Yes.
It's, there's no way to have it. See, we're just too limited. We'd have to be like several hundred, several thousand of ourselves out there in the world, having different experiences, all being connected to the one mind, in order to be able to understand it all. And so because we're just one closed system, as we've been talking about in the last hour, because we're one closed system, we have to depend upon the knowledge of others in order to develop our own. And when you get myopic and and tunnel visioned about your religion, and this is the only one, and this is the only truth, well, then basically you're moving further into ignorance that way. And that's why I'm the way that I am. And like when people are asking, why do you have tarot cards or oracle cards? Why are you selling them on your exorcist bishop page on Facebook? And it's like, well, this is why. Because I'm not afraid of knowledge, and I'm not afraid of the tools that give us knowledge of these higher realities. I don't see demons everywhere. I'm sorry that some of you out there do. I know you don't, April. I mean, you're definitely coming to a from talking to you, I can already tell you're at a much more advanced place spiritually than a lot of the people on my Facebook page. I'll tell you that right now. But for those people that are so myopic in their approach to religion, it's like, this is why you can't be. This is why you can't be, because you don't have to sacrifice your salvation. You don't have to sacrifice your relationship to Jesus to be able to understand the totality of all things. And maybe you don't need it. And honestly, if you don't feel you need it, then fine, you don't need it. But don't criticize those who do, because in today's day and age, in the day and age of empiricism and materialism and postmodernism, people more than ever need tangibility. Yeah. Okay, they need something that that makes sense to them. And throwing Bible verses at people who have never even read the Bible probably would, and even if they did, they might not even understand what they just read, is not helpful. It just drives people further away. So like that person we were talking about on Facebook who was, calling me a false prophet, which is not the first time I've been told that, but I've been called that a lot. I look at that and I say, this is why this church exists. So it's like she's upset with this church. She doesn't think this church should exist. She's upset that that we even have this ministry. Okay, she's upset with me. But it's like the only reason I'm here is because people like you drove so many Christians away.
Fact.
And I'm the big net bringing them back in. And do you think I'm bringing them back to my church? No, I'm not. Because if I did, we'd finally have the financial resources to do more. The fact that this church is so painfully, so grotesquely underfunded is because I send them back to their home churches, whatever they feel the most comfortable. But I give them the courage, I guess, to go back with the understanding that going back doesn't mean that they have to abandon the rest of the world. Now they can go back with a larger understanding. And that's what I've always tried to impart in people through this show, through this church. Jamie and I were in a heated discussion right before we went live about, how challenging it is, how difficult it is, how sometimes it is easy for me in my own ego to look at God and say, you did not hold up your end of the bargain. I did everything you asked me to do, but I didn't get back anything that I was promised out of this ministry. We got this church that just struggles. I am not an administrator. I am not the kind of person that is good at fundraising. You threw me half-assed into this, and I've given up so much security for both myself and my family. I have to deal with people like that photographer on Facebook calling me horrible things, attacking my ministry, attacking my lifetime of work, making up lies about me. And for what? For what? But then I talk to people like you, April, and then you tell me about how, this show helps to expand people's vision. We get people call in and say that I've changed their lives, and I didn't even know they existed. Never heard of them until today. And then I reminded myself that, well, at least it's been worth it for some people. I just wish I got to see it, but I guess that's my ego too. because this work doesn't feel good. It's not comfortable. It certainly doesn't pay. So it's very hard to do this day after day and not see any tangible results. So I get it. I get the need for empiricism because I have that need too. I'm a product of the modern era as well. I mean, we all are. No one alive today has not been born into is not living through the modern era. And as we get older, the younger generation's even more empirical. It's become even more mechanical and technological in its approach and understanding to things. But at the same time, philosophy is still integrating into it. So if we keep an open mind and we hold true to our convictions at the same time, if we're strong enough to do both, we'll be okay. The problem is being myopic, being really strong in one thing is not healthy and not good and not going to get you anywhere. So these people that are Bible only, and afraid of the rest of the world because it's either Jesus and everything else is a demon, I'm sorry, that's a path to hell. It is, believe it or not. That's a delusion. You asked about April, and maybe we can, if you'd stay on the line, if you wouldn't mind staying on the line through the break, I'd like to actually talk a little bit about it because it was a good discussion that I think we could have in the next hour. You asked me about like the nature of heaven, and the delusion, when I was talking about the delusion of heaven and what a lot of mediums are actually connecting with is that delusion. I'd like to talk a little more about the Bardo because, you said you wanted some clarification on that network. And I said, well, it's kind of hard to get into. It's like a long discussion, but I think maybe in the next hour we can talk a little bit about the Bardo and how delusions work. So stay on the line, April, if you wouldn't mind. And we're going to take our next and final break. And then when we come back, April and we'll talk more about the delusion that happens when we die and how to best prepare for that and to understand the risks and perils of the dying process. When we come back, don't go away.
for so long. One touch and we're igniting, setting fire to it all. You know these flames ain't going out. This building is crumbling to the ground. Don't think that we can stop it now, 'cause baby our love is gonna burn down. You know these flames ain't going out. This building is crumbling to the ground. Don't think I wanna stop it now, 'cause baby our love is gonna burn it down. Burn it down. One spark, I feel lightning blazing up through the darkest nights. Hold your breath, babe, the smoke is burning. But kiss me now and we'll be alright. You know these flames ain't going out. This building is crumbling to the ground. Don't think that we can stop it now, 'cause baby our love is gonna burn down. You know these flames ain't going out. This building is crumbling to the ground. Don't think I wanna stop it now, 'cause baby our love is gonna burn it down. Burn it down.
Welcome back, everybody, to the third and final part of Vestiges After Dark. We've been kind of getting philosophical tonight, which is kind of strange without Father Chris in the room. But
Loved it.
what's that?
He would have loved it.
Yeah, he would have. He would have. But we're going to continue the discussion with April about delusions, and then we'll start getting to some of your questions. I saw that there's quite a few, and we'll try to get to each and every one of them in this next hour, so don't go away. Okay, April, you still with us?
I am. I'm still here.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you for waiting through that break. And like I said, I wanted to kind of start off this next hour with more discussion about your question from the Nicolan Network. So you were asking about delusion, and so I don't think I kind of touched on it in questions from the ether in the first hour today. But I think it definitely deserves more of an answer than what I was able to give for those questions. So here's the thing. Remember when I was talking about when we die, we become the instinct of what we were, fueled through the lens of our last thoughts and feelings. So this is what explains why traumatic deaths cause hauntings, whether they be accidents or murders, anything that would cause an unexpected scenario that would cause a lot of fear or regret or sorrow is going to accelerate the instinct of that particular individual spirit. So that when that person dies and that spirit sort of separates through the dying process from the physical body, then what that spirit becomes is, again, to put it most accurately, how that person lived their life through the lens of that last thought or feeling, which is why it's so important that we die well. You'll hear me talk a lot about dying well. And what I mean by that is most people don't die well because they don't have the spiritual foundations necessary to know what to do when they're finally faced with that final moment. And we're all going to face that final moment, whether we want to or not. And Buddhism even adds another caveat that's a little scary. Buddhists will say you want to die with your eyes open, which what that means is you want to die fully aware so that you have maximum ability to project your spirit into the most favorable outcome that you possibly can. You need your last thoughts of conscious awareness to do that. So for a Buddhist, dying in your sleep is kind of a horrible thing unless you've done a lot of work and you don't have to worry too much about it. And then in Christianity, we of course do have grace. Grace is another aspect of it that Buddhism does not have, and grace does work. So that helps too. But what about people that don't do any either? They don't go to church to cultivate grace. They have no relationship to Jesus or, at all, or it's very superficial. They just say they believe in Jesus, but they don't really do anything with him. So what good is that? Or you can have the Buddhist understanding where they're spending a whole lifetime meditating and cultivating spiritual awareness. Most people aren't doing that either. So what you have then are people that are dying quite unprepared and are going to be projecting their spirit into the worst possible scenario, unless they happen to be naturally very loving people and died peacefully. Then they might have a chance in hell to avoid hell. Not because they're so sinful that they're going to be punished for all eternity, but because attaining to salvation and eternal life requires effort and grace. It requires the grace of the cross, and it requires the effort of your participation in that reality, which means a sacrificial approach, to selflessness and purging the ego of all of its, its egotistical desires. So what happens? Okay, so we die. Okay, and then that happens. That projection happens. Well, what does it project to? Well, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays right here in the reflective ether. Because, it's easy, even when we start thinking about things like the Akashic records, or we think of the collective unconscious, and we think of the ether as being like this dimension that's out there somewhere. It's out there. It's out there in some unknown place somewhere. No, it's all right here. Everything that ever was and ever will be is right here, right now. Okay, you have access to all of it. Because there's only here and there's only now. It only feels like it's out there and everywhere. And that's because of the closed system again. You're not connected to the open system. You're closed. You're connected to the closed system. From the day you were born, you've been in a closed system. Your cells are not connected to anything other than you. My neurons aren't connected to Jamie's. Hers are not connected to mine. In order for our neurons to connect, we have to talk. We have to communicate. That's hard. That's inaccurate. My thoughts and feelings might not get properly or accurately interpreted by her, and vice versa. And that leads to misunderstandings. It can lead to fights and can lead to all sorts of problems, right? And telepathy is only so good. And you need a lot of skill to be able to do it. And you need two people that are skilled to do it well. And even then, unless you're really empathic, you're not going to do it well. So what does that do, okay, as far as the afterlife goes? Well, you're going to get projected into that ether right here, right now. And how your expectations, kind of like when mediums do their thing, becomes your experiential reality now. So instead of having it as some kind of experience within your mind or some kind of psychic impression, now it becomes the totality of your experience. So just the same rules that applied while you were alive are the same rules that apply when you're dead, which means that your expectation becomes your reality. And so Buddhism has it narrowed down to 6 levels of experience, which are the gati. Okay. And of course, the one that we're most familiar with is the human gati. That's this one right now that we're experiencing. Okay. This is the best one because this is the one where we have the ability to experience both the pleasures of the higher realms and the horrors of the lower realms. We can do both, and we can actually choose between them, and we can be rational. So the human realm is sacred to the Buddhists. But there's 2 levels above the human realm. That's the demigod and the heaven realm. And these are experiences that happen now. They're not necessarily having to die to experience them. I guarantee you, a person that just won $100 million in the lottery and goes to quit his job, he's in the heaven realm right now. That's the heaven realm. Absolutely. He's feeling the entirety of it. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Then he blows all his money and then he ends up in the hell realm. And both gati are true and happening here and now. He didn't have to die to do it. But when you die, it becomes the totality of experience. And so there is the demigod, which is kind of it's like this experience, only you can actually do more things than what you can do. You're not as limited because it lends itself to more ethereal projections. And then the heaven realm, which is pure bliss. Okay. So blissful that you never even want to leave it. I don't know if anybody saw Star Trek Generations many, many years ago, but do you remember when Whoopi Goldberg and Jean-Luc Picard, Guinan, they ended up in the Nexus? And the Nexus was like this, she describes it as a blanket of happiness that just wraps you up, but it's all an illusion. That's what the demigod and heaven realms are. They're just illusions. They're not real. It's not the actual heaven that Jesus is talking about. It is just a delusion of the dying process. And it can last in your experience for eons. For everyone else here, it could be just 5 minutes or 5 years or maybe 100 years. But that's because time really doesn't have the relevance we think it does. And it's always going to be interpreted through other observers. So that's going to always have its impact. But for you, it could be as long as you need it to be. And you're slowly dissipating through it, and you don't even know it. Okay? You're dissipating through that bliss. And mediums pick up on this energy. They can sense it because it's in the Akashic records. And they're like, oh, this person's in the higher realms. This person's in the heaven realms. Of course they are. Of course they are. Yeah, because that's what you're seeing, what they're seeing. You're seeing their delusion. And mediums are that good at picking up on it, but they don't. What they're not good at is understanding that you're just substituting one illusion for another. And no one, not even the medium, is seeing authentic truth. No one can. You have to truly become alive for that. That's what Jesus is trying to do with salvation. That's why he doesn't really call it going to heaven. He calls it the kingdom of heaven, but he doesn't say, oh, you're going to go to heaven. What he refers to it as is eternal life, meaning actual life where it lasts. It's real because it lasts forever. And what I say earlier, the only things that are real are those things that last forever. Under the human realm are 3 gati. And there's the animal realm, which is one of the lower realms because animals are subservient to humans and are subject to more suffering because of it. And then there is, Yes, the animal realm, and then underneath that is the hungry ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
And this is kind of like the Buddhist version of purgatory, sort of, more like limbo, really. But it is essentially that's where the wrathful spirits end up and become manifestations. And that's where they're always hungry because they can never be satiated. They can never be full. They always are looking for something that can never be satisfied. And then the hell realm, which is just all of the horrors that you could imagine in hell times 1,000, all created by you, not some God trying to punish you. Okay. Not some devil trying to torture you, your ignorance, you become your own demon. You become your own prison. And it is only through the awareness of how to navigate this delusional realm of the bardo that we can ever attain to any kind of authenticity. So this is where the reincarnation aspect comes in, because you will fall in and out of the different gati. And then hopefully eventually you make it back to the human realm where you can make better decisions again, because this is the only gati you get rational thought. And it's rational because you can experience both pleasure and pain simultaneously. Okay. You can be happy and sad. Whereas in the heaven realms, you can only be happy, and in the hell realms, you can only be sad. Here you get to see both the way they really are, and you can see the emptiness of both, which hopefully leads you to move beyond that. And that's where Buddhism refers to this as enlightenment, or the attainment of nirvana. Okay. And so if you ask a Buddhist, where's nirvana? They're going to say, right here, right now. And they said, well, I thought I was in samsara. It's like, no, samsara is those are nirvana who just don't know it yet. And we could say that about heaven too. We can say, well, where's the kingdom of heaven? Right here, right now. Well, who's in heaven? Well, those that know. Why are we still here? Because we don't know it yet. We don't know it yet. And some of us might never know it. And that's what leads to hauntings and misery. And that's why people that do the work that we do is so important, because we have the ability to help them. We can use our rationality and give them some of that and guide them towards a resolution to this. So that's what I meant by delusion, April. I'll give you a chance to respond, and then, and if you have any other questions, let me know, and we'll move on to some other questions from the chat today.
So I think I understand it. But to me, when you were first talking about it, almost is a little bit kind of depressing because I think you kind of grow up with this view of what heaven's going to be. And then to hear you say it's like a delusion, well, then what's the reality? And I think, are you saying that the reality then is just kind of this ether that you go into, this energy where you join the energy of everything else everywhere, or kind of what are you saying about that?
Well, the reality, like when we talk about what Jesus is referring to, okay, when he talks about the kingdom of heaven, when he talks about eternal life, that's the reality. And that's not the delusion. That's waking up to existence. That's being alive for the first time and tasting life for the first time. What we have now is not life. This is just one of the delusions of the six gati, which is we're in the best delusion that there is, which is the human gati. Because again, we have rationality here. So we can more comprehend what it is that's happening to us and not fall into, for most, although I can tell you, people in the deepest, darkest depths of despair are definitely in the hell realms. They're not in the human realm anymore. Even if they're living as a human being, they're living in the hell gati, and that's what leads to suicidal ideation and all sorts of other kinds of depressions. And then, of course, people can be so blissed out they'll take drugs to feel the heaven gati. So yeah, getting high on hallucinogens or something can give you that rush of the heaven gati, but it's all delusional. It's not real. What Jesus is offering is authentic. And that's literally waking up to actual life. And yes, it's every bit as wonderful as you could possibly imagine it is, but it's far and beyond that. It is incomprehensible, essentially, but it is perfect and absolute union or reunion, we would say, with God and all of the awareness that comes with that. It's a return to use metaphor, it's a return to the Garden of Eden state, that state of unperturbed perfection. which is absolute happiness. And yes, it is no suffering. So all of the notions we have about heaven are true, but they are very simplified expressions of the magnitude of what it is that is actually awaiting those who actually attain to it. So there's nothing to be depressed about as long as one is willing to do the work. The depression is for those that are apathetic to it and do nothing, because there's very little chance that they could ever get there. Simply believing in Jesus is not sufficient. That's not going to get you there. If you read the Gospels carefully, you will see that each and every time Jesus speaks, he always gives an instruction that there is an expectation. There's something that must be done, that there's obligation that we have to the gospel that we must live out and carry out in order to attain to salvation. It's very clear in the gospel. So as long as one is willing to take on that responsibility and live that life of sacrifice, then they don't have anything to worry about. There's nothing to be depressed about, because of awareness, and that's why it's so important to die well and to cultivate our faculties of awareness, and to be able to cultivate grace through what the Gospels give us, and what any religion of your choice. I'm talking from a Christian perspective, of course, but I'm not exclusively saying that that's the only way. There's plenty of ways to do it, and that's what it is. So nothing to be depressed about, April.
Well, good, because I was starting to worry there for a minute.
Well, it's just different from what we were all taught.
It is, and honestly, it's kind of hard, because we come in from when you're coming in, you're kind of coming in through half the story. I sometimes forget who I'm talking to, because I'm teaching my students, I'm teaching people from the pulpit, people from all different walks of life. This audience is a different audience. Some people have been here since the first episode of season 1. Some people just found it this season. And they're all coming from different walks of life and different positions. And I sometimes have to remember that I don't know exactly where you are in the story, but I can kind of bring you up to speed if I need to. So this is why the Nicolaitan Network is so important. And April, you did it the right way. You joined the network, you asked the questions, you came in, and I hope you got the answers you were looking for.
I did, and I appreciate you spending so much time answering that. What started out as one question, and now we've done 20 more later.
20 more.
So I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you calling in, and thank you so much. And feel free to call in anytime. The show is here for all of you.
Thank you, April. God bless.
See you later,
All right,
April.
thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we have a half hour here. We can answer questions from the chat room. So let's go ahead and do that.
Go ahead, Brandon. I think you got.
So there is a question. How far back was it? Yes, we were on. I don't remember which question exactly, but a mystic commented, "Is the stone tape theory relevant?"
The stone tape theory. Okay, let's
the
like
residual
energy replay.
Yeah, the replay over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's part of that whole ethereal connection. It's just a more, I want to say it's a more superficial expression of it, but the ether is everywhere. Again, it's erroneous to think of it as a dimension that's out there. It's not out there. Okay. It's here and now, right in our midst, which is why divination works, which is why mediums don't have to, go to certain places to get a connection. They can connect anywhere. It's why they can do, like the paranormals. They do readings over the internet, on the phone. They don't have to be with the person. That's because the ethereal is right here, right now, fully accessible in its totality. So when a person, let's say, dies and some of that blood is spilled and soaks into the structure of the building, the energetic properties of that location absorb all of that same imprint, because it's all ethereal anyway. And so you might say, well, what's the ether? Well, the ether is that which contains the energetic vibrational geometry of the universe. which is everything that is. And so, yeah, I mean, it is relevant, and that's how it works. And that's why you will go to a place where something traumatic happened and it will be indisputably haunted. Or you might go to some place where nothing happened and, you know, it's peaceful and people might say, oh, nothing's ever happened here. That's why, you know. But I warn also people, every place is haunted. It's just, it only gets the label of being haunted because the energy is so active that even ordinary people can start to experience it. That's when we start to say, okay, this place is haunted, but everywhere is haunted. You can turn on your recorders in your rooms and you're going to get EVPs eventually, I promise you.
Because doing it at my house, nope.
Because that's what you're doing is you're just connecting with the ether. And because the ether's everywhere, and that means that all of the totality is everywhere. Okay, and that's what makes it dangerous with the egregores, and why, yeah, there's some truth to saying that tarot cards and Ouija boards do conjure demons. They're just not conjuring what you think. They're amplifying you. They're amplifying your own darkness. And let me tell you, there is no demon, not even Satan himself from the Bible, is worse than you. Not one demon that's worse than you. The darkness of your humanity, your egotism, your selfishness, your wrongdoing is all it takes. Doesn't require any fallen angels, okay? The amplification of the energy is what produces the experience of those things. And yeah, the energy of the cosmos is orchestrated and managed by these forces, and we call those forces angels, and they are intelligent, and they are hyper aware, far more aware than we are. And when they get filtered through the fallen nature, that's what produces the fallen angel. That's how an angel falls. That's why it's like, well, you know, some people will say, well, wait a second, there was the war in heaven, so we didn't make the universe, we didn't screw up the universe, it was screwed up before. People will argue that one because it sounds like there's some kind of linear time to it. Well, you can't, first of all, you don't put linear time on a myth. But you have to understand the truth. The truth is timeless. And the truth, what it's teaching us is that, yes, we fell, all right? We committed the original sin and fell and into this imperfect condition. And then when all of those forces of the cosmos that deal with the reabsorption destruction principle get filtered through the human experience of the fallen nature, that's how you get a fallen angel. All right, what's our next question?
Not sure had one, didn't he, Brandon?
He did. Let me. All these questions are so far back.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got not sure's.
Okay.
He says, okay, so is the feeling I get when I wake up at 3 a.m. to pry for the dead my ego or something else? Is it just maybe all in my head? And he also says further down, in reference to my question, could it have to do with the fact that I had to pick up dead bodies while in Iraq, and it's on my mind a lot?
All the above.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all in your head, but everything is all in our heads. Okay, so that doesn't make anything less real. The entire experience that you're having is all in your head. If I were to go into your brain and just chop it all up just enough that keeps you alive, but you're not able to process anything and basically you're a vegetable, I promise you, you will have no reality anymore.
He thinks that maybe he may have created a tulpa through the darkness that he went through.
And that's, yeah. But that's what every one of us is doing in different capacities.
Right.
Okay, so there's nothing unique about this other than the fact that our understanding of how to deal with it is very flawed, because one approach is to believe it doesn't exist. Another approach is to think that they're demons that are too powerful and you're too weak. Another approach is to, think that there's something else, when in reality, if we take responsibility for what it is and then actually break down through logical deduction, disassemble each aspect of that egregore or demon or whatever it is, then you essentially are liberated from it. So I think the first step is to understand that the ether projects and anything and everything that you throw at it. So if you're putting a lot of trauma out into the ether, then that's what you get back. That is the law of attraction. Was it April that was talking about that? Or was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The law of attraction. That's what it is that like attracts like, because, and this is why very negative people live very difficult, sad, miserable lives.
Yes, always have something going wrong.
Yeah, because all you're putting out into the ether is that, and that's all it gets reflected back. And then when it hits certain types of energy within the geometry of the ether, it gets amplified. And then you have a force to reckon with, something that does feel more powerful than you. But in the end, nothing's more powerful than you because it's always being spawned from you. You are its master, whether you like it or not. Every demon you come in contact with, even if it calls itself Lucifer himself, is still manifested through you. You are its origin point. You have all the authority to disassemble it. So if it bothers you, disassemble it. You really don't need an exorcist. The only reason why I'm needed is because I know how to do this every time. But I think it's kind of like tarot cards. It's like, yeah, you can go to psychics and maybe get a good reading and maybe you won't. But it would be much better that you learn how to read the cards for yourself and do it right. So the best way is actually, you don't need me. Learn how to disassemble these thought forms yourself because you're the creator of them. And all I'm going to do is help you facilitate doing that. I'm not casting anything out from you. I'm facilitating the disassembling of these patterns that are toxic to your well-being. And anyone can do this. You don't need anybody special. Okay. It's just helpful to have support because typically when we're in that state, we're compromised. And when we're compromised, we're feeling weak. And when we're feeling weak, well, that gets projected into the ether too. And guess what you become? Weak. And so then that's why people think that the devil's so powerful is because, you know, they're amplifying their own weaknesses. And that's usually done through fear. So fear is the biggest enemy, you know, in all circumstances. In every part of your life, fear is always going to be the worst enemy. Understand that no matter what this universe will throw at you, and let me tell you, it can throw anything at you. It can throw at you the worst shit that you could possibly imagine. It can throw at you unimaginable horrors. Okay, but the worst that can happen to you is you die. And that's not so bad. Okay? In fact, that's one of the best things that can happen to you. Because that's an opportunity to end the misery. Not through suicide, because that's the inversion of what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is once we have completed the natural cycle of this existence, if we do it correctly, then we wake up into life. And true life doesn't have any of these horrors. Only in the realm of death do we experience these horrors. And we are always in the shadow of death. It's like the Psalm. Even though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, this is life. That is what we call life, is not life at all. It is the valley of the shadow of death. It is I call it slow dying. True life, we have never experienced. We do not know it. The closest we can get to it is the sacraments of the church. We can feel life in baptism. We can feel life in the Eucharist. We can feel life when we're absolved from our sins in confession. We can feel life for most people because they're so emotional. They'll feel in the sacrament of matrimony when they really love their partner and they're getting married. They can feel life in that. I felt it when I was ordained a priest. I felt it again when I was consecrated a bishop. Okay. The sacraments contain a little seed of it, but we've never really known it outside of that. We've only never known dying. So all of this is just misery, right? I mean, it's all coming to an end. Doesn't matter really how it happens. Who cares if World War III happens? It's all coming to an end anyway. It does not matter. Okay. What matters is that you know what to do. And right now, You don't have World War III. Right now, you're presumably not dying, all right, not immediately dying. So what do you have? You've got absolute opportunity. And all that it takes to die well is to resolve to actually do it. It takes 5 seconds to make that resolution and live it. But don't fall into apathy. Don't let your ego trick you. Don't be seduced by your own selfishness. If you let that happen, well, then nothing can help you. So, yeah. So to answer his question, it is everything, all the above. And yeah, you have all the power you need to disassemble it. Just know what it is. It's a thought form. You created it. Get rid of it. And if you're being troubled, then start projecting something positive. But understand the ether's slow. So if you've been feeding it a lot of shit for a long time, it's going to take a lot of positivity to reverse the cycles of shit and before it starts reflecting back something good. So don't expect that, oh, wait a second, I've been thinking positive for 5 weeks now and nothing good's happened to me. This doesn't work. No, it might take you 50 years to undo the last 50 years of negativity, if that's what it takes. I'm not saying that applies to you. Not sure. I'm saying to anybody, but understand it's proportionate to what you've given it. So if you've been a very negative person, it's going to take a long time to reverse it, but no better time than the present. And with the grace of God, you might be able to accelerate it a little bit. That's the beauty of religion, that people don't understand the value of it, is that it can do this for us. Okay. What's our next one?
So I didn't see any in the chat, but I did have one myself, since we've been on this whole topic of what's real, the paranormal and whatnot.
That's definitely the theme of this season, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems to be almost as if that was planned somehow. As April said, she's one of the investigators that I've been with for over 2 years now. And
she's delightful, by the way. She's delightful. I really enjoy. I like her energy.
She's good.
The energy she's got is fantastic. I like her approach. I like the fact that she has that psychology background and understands archetypes. I mean, yeah, she's a keeper. So definitely keep her on your team.
And here recently we've had a medium join us. Okay. And when we go to a place, say that has some Ouija board activity, you've touched on this topic in a previous episode, but it was a couple years ago and it's been on my mind. We will come across Zozo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people I've been with become terrified of it to the point that they will just say or reference him as Z, won't even say his name. So my question is this some sort of powerful thought form that people feed off of their fear, or what exactly is it, metaphysically speaking?
It's basically the same kind of primordial egregore in the same league as Satan or Lucifer, in that same kind of sense. That it is, and it's an egregore that's been created, and it does have a lot of ancient origin. It is not simply the pop culture part of it.
Darren did a lot of research on that in his book, and it goes back thousands of years. As a matter of fact, it's been referenced.
It does.
Scripts. It
does, and I would actually argue that. Well, I would say anybody that's interested in this topic should go back to I think Darren did 2 episodes. The first one I think was even a little better for this topic on Zozo, and he discusses some of the background and how far back it goes, and it goes back quite far. So it's an ancient archetype of fear. It's part trickster, it's part shadow, and it has been kept alive through the fear that people have put into it, and now it lives in the Ouija boards.
I think there's another one that's associated with called Mama.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. But it is no more powerful in reality than any other thought form. It can be disassembled just as easily. The problem is when you have an egregore that is that pervasive, all you're able to do is disassemble it for you. you can't completely eradicate it from the human experience because there's always going to be somebody keeping it alive. And as long as there's someone out there that keeps it alive, it stays alive in them. So in this sense, the best that you can do with one of these larger egregores that kind of transcend generations of people and are ancient, primordial even, is to just disassemble it for you so that it has no power over you. And that's what I've done. This is why people are always asking me, are you afraid of, have you ever been on a case that scares you? It's like, why would I ever be afraid of any of this stuff? I mean, their patterns of energy, freaking disassemble them. It's as complicated as an electrician going in and unplugging a wire. Okay, that's all you do. But that won't stop someone else from plugging it back in. But doesn't mean that, it has to affect you. And so, no, these things don't affect me most of the time. When I'm tired and compromised, if I'm in a bad mood, which is common, then it can seep in there because I have an ego too. Even though I do a lot of work to control it, and I do a lot of work to eliminate as much of it as I can, I'm still a flawed human being like everyone else. I make the same mistakes. I am just as much a sinner as any other Christian. Perhaps maybe more so. I mean, I'm sure there's better Christians out there than I am. I'm sure there's a lot better Christians out there than I am. But so I deal with the same struggles and I deal with weakness too. And sometimes those forces can get the best of me for a while, but it's never beyond hope. We just simply, I use the sacraments. I use the church, which is what it's there for. It's there to strengthen us when we are weak. It's there to be our strength when we're weak. That's why it's important, why it's necessary. We can't always be strong on our own merit, on our own power. And that's how I get through it, So yeah, I still have challenges, but it doesn't scare me. I think if it scared me, I'd be a terrible exorcist. I'd be a real shitty priest, because what good would I be for anybody if I was falling into the delusions of everyone else? Well, I mean, I can tell you what it'd be like. I'd be like Joel Osteen or someone like that,
Lord.
That's what I'd be. I mean, typical. Well, I'd have a very wealthy church. Let's say that's one good thing that would come out of it. Because then I'd be telling everyone everything that they want to hear. I'd be just giving everyone the message that makes them feel good. So I'd be furthering their delusions, and we can all go into the heaven gati together, high on, intoxicated on bliss. Well, sorry, that's just not what I'm here to do. I'm here to give you reality, and I want you to wake up into actual life. I don't want to keep you in the delusions of death. And unfortunately, most people can't tell the difference. So, are we having any other questions or any? Or do you have any other ones?
I didn't see any more.
We just got, let's see, we got a few more minutes. So I could probably talk about one or two more topics if somebody has something that they would like me to discuss.
I actually have a friend that asked my opinion on this. It's more it's almost kind of a dream interpretation. I thought it was interesting. So she had a partner of 40 years, and they passed away from cancer about 12 years ago. Okay. Well, my friend is, she's 80, so she's up there, and she's starting to have a lot of memories in her dreams, spending time with her partner, the good times they had, the camaraderie, the friendship they shared. And she told me the other day she's been having dreams for a week now where she's reliving something that they did together, whether it's an outing or dinner or being out with friends, but she never sees this person's face. Their face is always blurred out, and she's wondering what that might mean spiritually, because it's so vivid when she wakes up. When she wakes up, she has to break herself out of the dream, thinking that it was so real. but she's not able to see her loved one's face.
I mean, it could be a few things. So she doesn't know who it is.
No. It's her partner.
She knows it's her partner,
her best
but
friend.
she can't ever see his face.
She never sees a face.
But she knows it's him.
Yes.
That could be just as something as simple as her not wanting to face the reality of his death. So there's like some part of her that has not come to terms or accepted it.
That's what I told her.
I mean, that would be my first impression, because I've talked about this when we did the dream interpretation episode a while ago with Amanda. Mm-hmm. One of the primary types of dreams that we have, you have the prophetic ones, you have the defragmenting ones, right? And then you have this archetypal one, which is sort of like where all of the characters in our dream are not the people that we think they are. They're aspects of us.
Yeah.
So the person that she's seeing, I would say that she's equating to being her partner, who's deceased now, but she can't see his face, is her part, the part of herself that loved him that she cannot deal with on some emotional level, his loss. And she's never come to terms with that loss.
Probably not, because within a month her son was killed.
Oh,
so there's a lot of loss back to back. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be that this is just basically it's being cut off because the brain is not wanting to process the information.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was leaning with
it. It's a type of almost repressed memory almost. It's almost like another expression of repression, not the classic kind of repression. But most of the time, most dreams that have a lot of symbolic or, a lot of characters that are doing interesting things or dreams that we remember, most of the time those are not defragmenting dreams or prophetic of any kind. Most of the time they're going to be aspects of ourselves that we're having to come to terms with. They're wonderful teaching moments because it can expose things within our psyche that we're not willing to see. In this particular case, she's literally not willing to see it. See?
Yeah, because everybody else is seen just like you and me, except for
that
the face.
And that tells me that on some level she has not emotionally dealt with it.
I can believe that.
Yeah. And so for some people, they never do. Just because it's been a long time, 12 years, some people never get over death. This is why attachment is the biggest enemy we didn't talk much about attachment tonight, but alongside fear and, when we're talking about dying well, the most important part of dying well is to die without attachment. Okay, so it can be very detrimental to die in a state where we have not made peace with our loss. We have to go through life as though all this is loss. If you spend any moment trying to grasp at straws at holding on to anything, you're wasting your time because you're going to lose it all anyway. Nothing is going to be retained from this existence. And even trying to hold on to it for a while or for some purpose is still futility, because what the universe is going to take away from you, it's going to take away no matter what you do. Okay. Well, best thing you can do is just live well. Live as comfortably as your existence allows and have no regrets about that, but do so without attachment. What you lose, you lose. What you gain, you gain. It all is just stuff anyway. Even the people. We tend to put our family members and our loved ones on pedestals. Understand that those are just phantoms of material as well. This is a hard one. Okay, this is a hard lesson, because we're always taught to value another being. And yes, value another being, but understand that they do not belong to you. They are not property, and you have no right to attach to them any more than they have any right to attach to you. You should serve each other. And by serving each other, you serve each other's interests to attain to reality, to wake up to authenticity. Because in the kingdom of heaven, there's not going to be special people, right? No special people in the kingdom of heaven. You're not going to be able to say like, oh, well, that's my lover over there. No, everyone's your lover. Everyone. Okay? There's not going to be distinctions like that. That's all a bunch of nonsense that we've created with the ego reality. And part of it's survival too. It's not all our fault. Part of it's survival, because when we have to survive, we create packs. Animals create packs because packs of like-minded individuals are safe. We can protect each other, just like dogs do. Why do dogs like to run in packs? Why do lions live in prides? Because there's social safety in that. Okay, against hostile threats. Why do people create coalitions? There's safety and like-mindedness. And so families become a coalition of like-mindedness. Oh, you're my blood, so I got to protect you. Mm-hmm. And there is social value in that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do it at the expense of everything else. And we always should understand the root of it. It's not special spiritually. All right. Even matrimony, okay, is not two people coming to be special together. That's not what the sacrament's about. The sacrament is about containing a temporary union for the creation of new life predominantly, and the safety and security of that life. Okay, through the love of God, and to experience the love of God in a tangible way so that we're better prepared for when we do face God, that we can enter into that actual perfect union with him that we got a taste of in our spouses. But when we're dead, and well, actually, let me take that back. When we're truly alive in the kingdom of heaven, all that are there are our lovers, our mothers, our brothers, our whatevers. Okay? Nobody special, nobody unique, nobody that stands out above the rest. All right? And that's a hard one. That's a hard metaphysical truth. But I guarantee it's very Christian. It's very biblical. Pay attention. Read the Bible, and read it in the original language if you can. And you don't have to know ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew to do it. All you have to simply do is to get the scripture in the original language, and then go word for word and understand with a ancient Greek dictionary and an ancient Hebrew dictionary what those words mean. Okay? And then you'll understand, it'll open up to you in a whole new way, and you'll realize that the pastor at your evangelical church that you've been going to all your life was just full of shit. It's very true. I'm not shitting you. It's very true. And all those photographers on Facebook, well, I can't help you. I can't help you.
Stick to photography.
Yeah, stick to photography.
Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
Yeah, stay in your lane. Because let me tell you, on your best day, you'll never understand this stuff like I do. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. It's just simply true. You don't have enough life in you to be able to study what I've studied in my lifetime. And let me tell you, growing up in today's time, you don't have a chance in hell.
Well, you're never going to learn anything by just putting down others, Miss Laura.
Yeah, I'm telling you, right? Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Next week, we got JJ back, right, Brandon?
Yes, we do.
All right, so we'll be talking about Japanese spirituality.
Yeah, that's something I don't know much about, so I'm looking forward to that as a...
I don't either.
Yeah. We'll talk about Shinto and the yokai and all that fun stuff. Yomi, maybe. We'll talk a little bit about Yomi. It's going to be really interesting. Grab some sushi.
We'll have to find some sake.
Yes, sake. Maybe sake for next week.
Sake for libations,
let's get some sake. Yeah, let's do that. Really good one. Let's find a good sake. And so that's next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I just want to remind everybody, be sure to pick up your Esoteric Mysticism deck if you want one. The link is only going to be good until Saturday. I'm not taking orders after Saturday. I'm going to delete them after Saturday. Okay, so if you want one, get one, and it will probably never be offered again. It certainly was more headache than it was worth. But anyway, if you want one, it's there for you. And remember, this show lives off of your support. Okay, this church is only here because you support it. If you stop supporting it, I have to close it. Okay, and if you stop supporting the show goes off the air. Simple as that, right? It's cause and effect. Okay, so if you like what we do, support it, even if it's just a little bit. It helps. Okay, we're losing pledges constantly. They're not getting replaced. We need your help to make sure that all of these services stay alive. Okay, so many people get benefit from it. Remember us in your charitable donations. Till then, I'll see you out there in the ether. God bless.